Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
Ian, good evening, everybody. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 261 of the news. And man, do we have some big news tonight.
And Dewey. And of course, real quick, you wouldn't believe it, Matthew, it's showing the control room again for no reason. So let me go and change the displays, because for some reason OBS is screwed up twice in a row and is not saving anything I'm putting into it now. So let me go to display.
Did y'all see that chat rate though? 132. That chat is rolling.
That was high. So real quick, let me put in capture 1 and click OK, and then that goes to display 2. Nope, that goes to display 1, I believe. And capture method on Mac. Okay, so it should be showing our screen, I believe. Let me see if it will. You wouldn't believe it, everyone, but of course, when we have the largest news to report of the war, OBS just decides to give up on me. So let me go and remove that again and go add it once more. You know, this is incredibly aggravating. I don't know why OBS is starting to drop the ball. So let's see, capture method. We want display 1, maybe, or display 2. So display 2 is the only one picking up now. Display 1 is not showing anything, which is very odd. So let me see if I can fix this problem by messing around with the settings a little bit more. Sorry about this, everyone. I know that it's just blackness, and of course that's incredibly annoying. It's annoying to me as well. But let me see if I can try and fix this again. So display, capture. Let's see here. Add exist. Well, let's see if we can add an existing one. So
also, folks, while we're waiting, feel free to hit that like button as well. Maybe that will make up for the tech difficulties tonight by putting the stream out faster. But we do appreciate it very much. It looks like we're up to 782 likes thus far, so very good.
So, real quick, Matthew, for some reason, I think I'm going to have you over here for a second. It's not wanting to pick up the first display. It's only wanting to pick up the second display. The first one showing up is black, although we have the map up. So,
right. Well, Matt is coming over.
All right, so real quick, everyone, we're going to be trying to sort out the technical difficulties. Sorry about that, everyone. So give us just a second. And also, Doom said, quality content liked. Thank you for the like. And I'm sorry about this once again, everyone. This has never happened until today. And now we're sitting here watching all of these tech difficulties happen today and yesterday for no reason.
Tech support has arrived and is on the problem.
So we're taking a look here. So 1 second, everyone. I know that it's silent right now. We're trying to see, was that really all that had to be done to fix it?
It was a source issue.
It was a source issue. So sorry about that, everyone. But now you're taking a look at our behind the scenes on the OBS. And now, while Matthew rushes back to his office, it is time to take a look at the map, which this is just getting out of hand. I'm sorry about the technical glitches, everyone. I don't know why OBS is failing us like this, but hopefully it won't fail us anymore in the future. Especially tonight, as the Ukrainian armed forces have rolled forward in Kherson and have actually reached the outskirts of the city itself. We never believed that the Ukrainian armed forces would push this fast and this far over the past 24 hours, but just over the past day from the last time we reported this news, 41 villages have been liberated, and the Ukrainian armed forces, like I just said a second ago, have already made it into Chernobivka, and from what we know, they've already made it even further into Kherson City, although we don't know exactly where. It is massive news and unbelievable to think that at this point in the war, the Russians have just completely folded. It's impressive to see. And so without further ado, also, Matthew, are you back at your computer just making sure our mics are working still?
Yes, indeed.
All right. So hopefully I don't have to try and set up my entire stream again tomorrow night, because now it seems OBS is doing that daily. But with that, it's time to start off with a nice little look of news. One thing that y'all may remember is that yesterday, Snehurivka was the front line. The Ukrainian armed forces were just a mile outside of town, and if you look at this front line today, you'll see that it's now several miles behind the lines and in Ukrainian territory. And as we saw today, we saw the scenes of Ukrainian armed forces rolling through the town and liberating the thousands of people who have been stuck under Russian tyranny and subjugation for months. And one thing that's really interesting to me, Matthew, I think this is probably the most interesting out of them all, is that if you remember, the Russians held a referendum here, and they said that I believe it was 93% of Kherson wanted to become part of the Russian Federation. And when we watch these videos, almost the entirety of these towns are out and cheering and celebrating as Ukrainian soldiers have made it here. And so here's the first video from Snihurivka, one of 3 of the liberation that occurred today.
Сьогодні, 10 листопада 2022 року, було звільнено населений пункт Снігурівка силами 131-го окремого розвідувального батальйону. Слава Україні! Героям слава!
You see them looking back at the crowd? They got quite a sizable crowd for a town like Snihurivka in one spot. And this isn't the only video that we got today of the liberation there. We got a second video that... Oh, there we go. We got a second video of the liberation inside the town, mostly near the outskirts, but we can see 2 people running up to this Ukrainian convoy here on the road. And so without further ado, here's that video as well.
Да, все нормально. Да, все нормально. Все, приїхали, приїхали.
Аби ви знали, що ви приїдете, ми знали!
Да, да, да.
You see them running up.
Давай, давай. Герой, герой.
We hear them yelling Slava Ukraini.
Сейчас, 2 минути.
And they just keep coming.
Герой.
Ми вам дякуємо, що ви нас звільнили.
Все нормально.
Now this, I have to pause this right here because I gotta hammer this point home. This is a genuine scene. This is being filmed by a Ukrainian infantryman. You can tell that the entire video wasn't scripted. They saw a guy walking up and so they started recording, and then the rest of them just started slowly trickling over. This is what Ukraine is really fighting for. They're not fighting for these fake Russian propaganda films where they drag some people out of their basement and they quietly sit around and go, oh, the Russians are here and we're free now. No, this is not that. These people are coming forward and they're almost hysterical, seeing that the Ukrainian army has liberated their village again after 8 months of being under Russian control. This is what Ukraine is fighting for. This is why the war hasn't ended still, and this is most likely why the Ukrainians will never compromise until all of their land has been retaken, and then they'll most likely go into actual peace agreements. Because these people do not want to be under Russian control, and you can see by their reactions right here, seeing that they've been liberated, that this is the best thing that's happened to them over their entire lifetimes. And so with that, we're going to let the video continue.
What's the cow doing, though?
It's there as well. The cows will go, "Mrrr."
Це буде Україна!
Так, ну все, ми поїдемо. Вань, давай далі вона кепіна буде. Давай, давай.
We can see even more people coming forward and their dogs. Everyone and their dog is out here to congratulate these soldiers on helping to liberate Snihurivka.
Все, на Івана Кепіна поїдемо.
See this old man coming around trying to shake everyone's hands?
Героям слава!
And these people are over the moon.
Дякую. Давайте нам далі працювати треба.
We now see their BTR starting to move forward again. And now they're on the way to liberate the next village. Even as more people come out of the woodworks from this village to cheer and wave them on as they drive off. It's truly, it's a wonderful scene to see how well these Ukrainian soldiers are being received as they're rolling back through these lands that have been controlled by the Russians ever since the start of the war. And it lets me know that this war is worth continuing to be fought over. Many people, of course, not many people, of course, that's always an overstatement. Some people say these days that the war shouldn't be fought anymore. People are dying pointlessly, but these soldiers, if they do die, and very few of them do in comparison to the Russians, they're dying to liberate these people who once they see the Ukrainian army, they go almost in breakdown. They almost can hardly control themselves anymore because they are just glad to know that they won't be living under Russian subjugation anymore and they'll be free again. And that's what they're fighting for. That's what we're supporting them for, is so that way these Ukrainian people can truly live as free people in their own country. And scenes like these, we've seen dozens of them today. Snihurivka has several videos attached to him, also Pavlivka as well, which is right beside it, just about a mile away, across the, if I'm correct, it would be the Inhlets River. And so here's another video of random citizens who have come out to celebrate and cheer on the Ukrainian armed forces that have liberated their village here in Pavlivka.
Так зустрічаюсь з цвітами.
I like how it cuts from that, Matthew, to their car, and it's just filled with flowers. Oh, man. So, you know, he's showing all of them around. And notice right now, look in the car. It's empty. There's nothing in there. It's just, you know, a normal car. And they're just sitting around celebrating with everyone. They're all cheering and, you know, crying and celebrating with tears of joy and all that. And then they cut the camera, and the car is filled with flowers. Like, they can hardly fit in there anymore.
Nice.
Now that is a liberator's welcome.
That guy looks very pleased, too.
Yeah, he does. You can tell he's not trying to be too ecstatic, but this guy is over the moon as well. And I got to tell y'all, tonight, I don't even think we're going to be covering the news in the kind of categorical way we usually do, going from front to front, talking about the strategic condition. Tonight's a great night. Tonight's a night like the one we saw when the Ukrainians broke the line near Izium and started a race towards Kupiansk and Svatove. It's a night to be remembered. This is a night that will go down in history forever. And we've got, and this isn't even the start, we have about 8 to 9 more videos of individual villages being liberated, flags being raised over them, and showing how so many people who are actually happy to see that they will once again not be pretty much slaves to the Russians or third-class citizens. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next clip, where we can see Ukrainian forces liberating the towns of Ishchenka and Storitsia. Now these villages are about 8 miles behind the front lines, to give you an idea of how fast Ukrainian forces have been moving.
Добрий день, чи що? Я не знаю. Доброго ранку. Ми з Криворіжжя, Криворізька 129-та бригада ТРО, 7-й окремий батальйон Арей. Де ми знаходимось?
Стариця вже.
Стариця.
Це за сьогодні друге село.
Друге село Іщенка. Зараз Стариця. 11 ранку, 10 листопада 22-го року. Орків нема, побігли далі. А ми просуваємось далі. Слава Україні!
Героям слава.
You now see them resting in the village. Citizens have come out and are giving them some drinks, some ciggies.
That fella had a whole bagel in his mouth.
Yeah, that man's got the Boston bagel right there. Man, liberation comes complete with catering these days. And with that, that's the end of that video. But once again, a beautiful sight as Ukrainian forces have now liberated this village as well. And this time, they didn't just get treated to flowers and hugs and tears of joy. These people were so appreciative, they actually whipped out the fine china and started serving them up some snacks and treats, which I gotta say, I mean, like, it's something to see. It's because we've seen throughout most of this war, any video like this we've ever seen was usually from the Russians, as they say they're quote-unquote liberating parts of Ukraine, and they're always bringing out these people out of their basements who are sheepishly and quietly standing around. They don't look like they want to be on film, and they'll maybe meekly say something like, oh, it's great that Russia's liberated our lands. These scenes of the Ukrainians rolling through and liberating these villages are the complete opposite. It's night and day. This is sincere gratitude and joy that they're being liberated again. again, and it's just good to see so many sites like this. And so, without me giving a massive speech on that one, it's now time to move on into the next village, Kacharivka, where we saw that the liberation reached all the way to the Dnipro Reservoir today as well. This time, we didn't get to see a lot of happy and cheering civilians in this one, but we did get to see the old beautiful blue and yellow being lifted back over the town again. And so, here's the video.
Качкарівка, Херсонської області звільнено, Національної гвардії України, Маріуполь, Азовсталь, військовослужбовці, які знаходяться в полоні. Ми про вас не забудемо. Рухаємося тільки вперед. Слава Україні! Героям слава!
And we now see him plant the flag on the side of the building, and the town has been liberated. Is that nice or what? I mean, honestly, man, you can't help but feel great knowing that the Ukrainian armed forces are just rolling through this area of Kherson almost without opposition.
Yeah, it's crazy, and they're moving in fast too, and they're I'm just shocked at how fast they're moving in, to be honest.
They are moving in incredibly quickly, and we will be discussing that a little later on because, of course, Matthew and me have actually had a small little discussion before stream. I made sure to save the actual bulk of it for the stream, but we were talking about the speed at which Ukrainian forces are moving at and what we may be expecting. But moving on to the area of Chiklove, before we get to that, that'll be at the end of all of these wonderful videos, we can see even more liberation reaching Ukrainian villages. So we can once again see the Ukrainian flag being lifted over the town center of Chiklove in the Kherson region as well. We now see them planting the flag here, giving out the old chant, and with that, that's the end of the video, and it's beautiful to see again that another village has been liberated. In case if y'all maybe didn't catch this, I think I said this, I'm not really sure, 41 villages have been liberated just today over the past 24 hours. And that's how quickly the Ukrainians have moved forward. And while we weren't able to show a video from every single one of these villages, the ones we've seen have been wonderful. Moving a little bit further on down the lines, we can see that the liberation is still rolling forward as we speak. Here's a video showing the Ukrainians moving through another village further down the line from Sneharivka.
Побачите вже, напевно, але тут написано «Вітаємо на Бобровому куті». Андрій Підлісний. Йдемо на Бобровий кут. 16:51, 9 листопада.
See them meeting some more citizens.
Добрий вечір.
Здрасте, ребят! Ми з України.
This man literally just woke. You know, Matthew, that's honestly gotta be the best way to wake up ever. This man is still in his nightgown, and he just woke up to the Ukrainian army standing outside his house. You know, that's gotta be the best. Sight. That's gotta be the best way to wake up ever. This must be like Christmas for this man.
Ми з України.
Добрий вечір.
You see them hugging everyone, meeting them.
Добрий вечір. Слава Україні.
How long has it been thus far? How long have the Russians held it?
The Russians have held this area of Ukraine for nearly the entirety of the war, almost 8 months at this point.
So this is like the end of a 8-month saga for these people. So they were like beyond relieved.
Yeah, this is the end of an 8-month occupation. I guess you could say this would be similar to, and well, this is not similar in terms of length, but in terms of the joy and the jubilation that they're having. I guess you could say this would be very similar to Belgium and France being liberated in the Second World War, although that was about 4 years of occupation as compared to around 8 months in this war. But still, you can just imagine every single day they wake up in occupation with the humility of thinking that these people, this army that's rolling through their town every day, is not their own people, it's not their own country, and of course probably suffering great, I guess you could say, tragedies, tortures, subjugation, constantly from the Russians. Then one day, you go to sleep, and the next day you wake up, and they're gone. The streets are empty, they're quiet, and you see men marching down the streets with yellow armbands on, flying Ukrainian flags. That's got to be the craziest thing to ever see.
Ой, чесно, не віриться. Україна!
Так. Ми давно вас чекали.
Вітаю!
Ну ось що. Ой.
Слава Україні! Красиво, без
And now they're on to the next
і
village.
непотрібних втрат. І наближаємось до Калинівського. Що там, коротше? Росіяни. Де ви, блядь? Чого ви кудись от це от все відходите? Продовжуємо звільняти Херсон. Заходимо на чергову ворожу позицію, з якої вибили піхоту.
They're now passing by an abandoned Russian position. A Russian tank that's slightly damaged.
Справочна тетрадь прапорщика до... Наступаємо на мотоблоках. Десанту вміщає 5 чоловік. Ёб твою мать! Я дайте...
This man slipped off the side of the trailer, Matthew, and I think he fell headfirst into these guys right here.
Let's see it again.
Ёб твою мать!
Oh wow. Look at that kiwi on that guy's patch. Did you see that?
Wait, Kiwi? Oh, it's,
Yeah,
it's
the kiwi.
the kiwi bird! Is this man a New Zealand Foreign Legion member?
He must be.
That's pretty cool. Also, I love kiwi birds. I think they're really neat.
Є деякі питання до заходів безпеки, конечно.
And these guys are just having a great time. Also, I like how they're using the little tractors with trailers moving around the building. Oh, look at that! They got a bouquet thrown at them from the side of the road. Now that was neat. Take a look at that. Hey, that's pretty nice.
Nice.
О, що у нас 10 число.
Now you see them moving up to an abandoned Russian position. It looks like the place got obliterated too. See, they left behind some ushankas, some spare equipment, some water jugs.
Котре хочу подякувати небайдужим росіянам, які тікаючи залишили нам свої позиції, свої боєприпаси, і частково техніку, і як подарунок пральну машину. Тут вже, правда, використовується
Oh, the washing machine! There it is! They got it back!
No way.
No
Does it
way.
have the chips intact and everything?
The chip's intact and everything. It looks like they were using it. Genius! This is brilliant. This is what. And also, just in case y'all don't know, the war is being fought to return the washing machines that have been lost so far on the war, and the Ukrainians have gotten another one on film. Honestly, this isn't as amazing and breathtaking as seeing so many citizens just filled with euphemism and joy, but still, it's hilarious to see that the washing machines that we were all talking about 6 and 7 months ago that were being stolen out of Ukrainian houses, they're now getting them back 6 months later in the war because they're liberating the areas that they were stolen in.
Використовується кухня, але
Funny thing, Enforcer, that's the exact same model of washing machine that we used to have.
Yeah, I know. That's the craziest thing. I thought it looked similar. I'm glad you said that. It is an LG. Yeah, it's the exact same kind.
It's a quality unit, by the way.
It is quality. If y'all ever need a washing machine, I think these might be a little old at this point because I think ours were about 14 years old, maybe even older by the time we replaced them, but still a quality washing machine. It worked through and through the whole time. But we're going to let the video continue and wrap up this little clip.
нічого.
We now see him back outside again, taking a look at the former Russian position. And with that, that's the end of the video. And I gotta say, y'all, it's great to soak it all in. It's wonderful to see. Like this is just unbelievable. It's almost like it's a fantasy, nearly. But with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next bit of Kherson news, not location unknown news. This has a location, and it's Kherson. And from this day forward, the word of Kherson will go down in history as one of the most, I guess you could say, humiliating defeats that the Russian armed forces have ever faced. Moving on to the next clip, we see the Ukrainian army moving forward in another direction on the Kherson front, this time under fire. It appears that they did take some resistance in this area, and so here's the video. You hear the rounds bouncing off the ground right around him as he returns fire. And it's quite a firefight.
Я пуст. Я перезаряжаю.
We see the soldier trying to change out the magazines. You hear a round come in nearby and explode.
Сука! Пидорас!
Ебать, ты портовый.
Да? Просто отбило, да?
Да.
And for some reason, the audio cuts out at the end of the clip.
Идут слева!
О, слева, блядь!
We see them on the move rather quickly into the next part of the brush, and the video ends right there. But still, while the Ukrainians have taken a little bit of fire in this clip, it's not stopping them from advancing along the entirety of the front. Now it's time for us to move down to the meat of what the thumbnail and the title is about tonight. If y'all looked at the thumbnail, y'all would have seen that the Kherson sign, the road sign, was in the thumbnail, and some Ukrainian soldiers holding up a flag as they passed by it. The reason being for that thumbnail is that right here on this part of the line, the Ukrainians have already made it to Chernobyivka. If y'all don't know, Chernobyivka, while being a separately named town, if you look at the map, it's practically a suburb of Kherson City proper. I guess you could say this would be like Anaheim to Los Angeles, if you want to make that comparison, or Queens to New York. It's practically a suburb. Well, Queens is a suburb of New York. And so, with that point being said, they've made it to the Kherson International Airport, as well as Chernobyivka, and from what we know, they've been completely unopposed. And this is, and just to let y'all know this, because at this point, operational security in this instance is not really that much of an issue because they're moving so quickly. It appears that the Ukrainians have done something, Matthew, that is so ballsy, I didn't think they would do it. I didn't even consider it an option, and I was completely proven wrong here. They are not waiting to push the Russians towards their landing zone. It looks like they're racing towards the landing zone to cut the Russians off.
Yeah, and I mean, it's debatable if that's a wise tactic or not. It's certainly ballsy, and it's like symbolic of the way the Ukrainians have done it so far, but I'm not sure if it's wise. We'll save that one, Matthew, because I think we're about to get into it a little bit early. We'll save that for right when we get done here, but one thing I gotta say, Matthew, is that I didn't expect it to happen this way. I was completely proven wrong over the past 24 hours because I said yesterday, if y'all recall, that it would most likely be about 2 to 3 weeks until the Ukrainians started to move forward because they would wait for almost all of the Russian forces to withdraw and then push out the remaining skeletal defenders that would be holding those front lines. They have already started monumentous efforts and movements today, and they've made massive amounts of ground, but what's crazy to me is that I actually expected them to try and create a perimeter around Kherson. The way the front line's already developed today and what's happened, they've moved into Kherson itself, just straight in, and it looks like they're going right for the landing at the Antonovsky Bridge. There's really no other way to explain it. And going off of that, I think what they're attempting to do, I think they're attempting to stop Dunkirk in the process, Matthew, and they're going to stop the Russians from transporting any of their equipment across, and most likely most of their soldiers, and force them into surrendering somewhere in between Novokakhovka and the Antonovsky Railroad Bridge. Interesting. So you think this is their equivalent of Dunkirk?
I would say that this would be Russia's equivalent right now with Kherson of Dunkirk and trying to evacuate the soldiers out of the, I guess you could say, amphibious crossing they have made there. The problem being that, unlike Dunkirk, where the Germans surrounded the city and then stopped their offensive, the Ukrainians are punching right for Dunkirk itself and leaving the Russians with no way to cross the river, unless if they were to use the Novokakhovka Dam Bridge or the Antonovsky Rail Bridge, which has been so extensively damaged that only soldiers can cross, and it will be a very light trickle at that. So most of Russia's armed forces, it appears right now, along with their equipment, are going to be completely trapped on the other side of the Dnieper River if this quick move here ends up paying off. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And honestly, if there are as many soldiers as we've been told, because yesterday our number was somewhere around 17,000 Russian soldiers are on this side of the Dnieper River, and I'm sure that that's changed by several thousand as of today. It's most likely closer to 12 or 13. If that many soldiers are captured on the other side of this river and are forced to surrender due to encirclement, and I'm saying this, and this may be a massive overstatement on my part, that may end the war. It'll be such
Now,
an
Enforcer, I do have a question for you real quick. If the Ukrainians can't move around quick enough to cut off the Russians before they completely evacuate and retreat, where do you think the Russians are going to go to regroup?
the Russians will move across. Are you talking about like front wide or just Kherson wide?
Like when they get done retreating, where do you think they're going to halt?
They're going to halt along the Dnipro River exactly, because it's a natural barrier. It's a great defensive line. The river is almost a mile wide in most places, like the Mississippi River, and so it's ideal because there's no way that anyone, either the Ukrainians or the Russians, could cross it again because all of the bridges have been knocked out. So you'd have to prepare an amphibious landing, which would be impossible because the boats, if you ever got them into the river, would be destroyed on the spot. Also, it would be a high casualty crossing because it would be a very slow process to get any meaningful, I guess you could say, landing force across. So in my opinion, and of course I can be wrong, I was proven wrong in a great way by the Ukrainians today, but I could be wrong on this one, but I think that the Russians will most likely move their forces to the southern end of the Dnipro River. The Ukrainians will meet them there, and then this front line will come to a complete end. This chapter of the Ukrainian war will be closed, and the fronts and the heavy battle, well, the major battles of the war will be fought in other areas of the front line further north and east. And so that's what I'm thinking right now, but do you have anything to add to that, Matthew?
I'll have to defer to you on that one, but if they can successfully push them back, maybe the Ukrainians' tactic is to keep them running so they don't have a chance to regroup. That could be it. But at the same time, without getting too deep into the argument at the point or at the moment, I think they might be overextending themselves if they keep pushing forward and chasing the Russians down. But that's just my take, and we'll get into that a little bit more later.
And we will make sure to do that because Matthew and me are both kind of chomping at the bits. We keep on touching on it a little bit, and so stick around and we will get into that discussion here in a little bit because Matthew and me have opposing ideas on that. I think it'd be interesting for us to discuss and also y'all to hear and discuss as well in the live chat because I thought it was a very interesting discussion. So with that, we're now going to be moving on to the next part of the front line in Mushakivka, where we saw some Ukrainian Mi-8s helping to clear the way for the Ukrainian ground forces. Also, I'm going to have to mute that, but you can see the Mi-8s flying over, popping off their rockets, popping off their flares. I gotta say, it's a nice sight. And these helicopters are no longer idly firing like most helicopters on both sides have been during the whole war, firing off at static positions on a static front. These rockets are landing on Russian forces that are currently in the process of retreating. And we can see their MLRS barrage on drone footage. One of the rare times we've been able to see the accuracy and the spread of these kinds of rocket barrages. With that, we're now going to be moving on to the next clip of film outside of Chernobivka, where we saw the Russians weeping. Now, one thing y'all may notice is that there's not a lot of bots in our live chat tonight. Reason being is because of this one thing here.
They're coping.
Yeah, they're coping because the Ukrainians are now capturing the remainder of their high-tech equipment like this T-90A. Also, what type of kit is this on this T-72B3? The Ukrainians went pimp my ride mode on this thing after they captured it. It's got a mine plow. It's got these weird mesh plates on the side of the turret, which are not standard, and also ERA tiles. They look like Contact 1 tiles on the side of the tank. They went and kitted this thing out. Not only that, they got a T-90 behind it being towed that has a cope cage on it still. Now, do you know how rare this is, everyone? This tank has a cope cage on it, and the only time the Russians had cope cages on their tanks was when they initially started the invasion on February 24th. This means that this is one of the rare tanks on the front line that's been able to survive 8 months of the war without being destroyed or captured, and that streak ended today when it got towed off.
You know what it really looks like? The cope cage. It looks like one of those canopies you put over like a lawnmower when it's really hot out and you don't want the sun hitting you. It looks like that.
Yeah, it kind of does. You know what I was thinking it looked like? It looked like those mesh cages that you put chickens in a chicken coop. And that's kind of a little morbid when you think about it in a way because it almost does that for the crew. The crew can't stand up on top of this tank. They have to crouch. And so if the tank gets hit, it's a lot more difficult for them to get out of it because of the cope cage.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip and back to the great videos of the liberations that have been going on. We saw another liberation occur in Blagodatne in Kherson. I'm sorry, I butchered that one, I know. But here's the video. Because while I'm butchering the pronunciation of these villages, the emotions are raw. And so here's the video.
Слава Україні!
Look at that. They got the Ukrainian flags out. They're waving them.
Смерть ворогам! Привет, парень!
This sounds like Mr. Corgi.
It does.
Приветствую. Все буде добре. Все буде добре. Більше немає тут їх?
Боже, синочки! Боже, ти куди?
Все буде добре.
Блядь, як ви вас ждали довго, блядь.
It's just so nice to see. I don't even have to add commentary to this. You can clearly just see what's going on right there, and it's just beautiful. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on to the next clip, where we can see that the Russians have been helping out the Ukrainians again with keeping this offensive going via the involuntary Lend-Lease. And so I'm going to let y'all see what the Ukrainians got today.
Ленд-ліз по-кацапськи продовжується. Ось така манюнічка буде служити
A nice artillery
Україні
piece.
тепер.
Nice.
А ось там, воно. Вон.
Is this fellow from Great Britain?
Кацапськи
I don't
продовжується.
know. He does have a British flag on.
Я навіть не знаю, що це таке. Як це називається?
I think it's the same dude from the earlier video.
Ну, калібр добрий.
I think he may
Ось
be.
такі, коли українська армія просувається, кацапи залишають нам ось такі подарунки. Ну, залишили її, тому що пробили колесо. І ось таке, сука, створіння, яке стріляло по нашим людям. Отак от. Все буде Україна.
And with that, that's the end of the video, but you can see another little piece of equipment acquired by the Ukrainians thanks to the involuntary Lend-Lease. And I gotta say, there's been no sweeter Lend-Lease than the Russian one because of the fact it's completely involuntary. With that, we're now going to be moving to another part of the front lines, where we've seen that the Russians appear to be surrendering in some parts of the front lines. Little unexpected, wouldn't you all agree? I thought that the Russians had this whole thing in the bag. What's happening? They're losing ground, they're surrendering, what's going on here? And so with that, here's the video of 3 more Russian prisoners that have been captured.
Ну що, орки, подобається вам на нашій землі? Яке сьогодні число, який місяць?
4 ноября.
Листопада, блядь.
And with that, that's the end of the video. A very short one, but you can see that even while the Russians are conducting a retreat, they are still being overrun in some positions and being forced into surrendering because of that fact. And it's impressive to see that they're even overrunning the skeletal defenders that the hope is will be able to hold the Ukrainians back long enough for the Russians to be able to withdraw most of their forces. With that, we're going to be moving on to the final video we've gotten from Kherson today of the liberations that have been occurring here at Stanislav, where we saw another Ukrainian flag being raised right on, pretty much. This is the Dniprovska Gulf, but I guess you could say in a way it's being raised on the Black Sea, although this is more of a gulf. But anyways, here's the video. And this one was pretty cool to see.
Первый есть.
There's nothing like a flag raising. There's nothing like it. It's incredible to see. It's like seeing the U.S. flag flying over Iwo Jima. It's like, dang, we have won! And it looks like the Ukrainians are winning as of right now. And as we can see, based off of this front line, which is not entirely accurate, and it's not up to the minute. Of course, we can't do that due to operational security reasons. We want to make sure that Ukrainian soldiers are as safe as possible. But moving on from that, they are making landfall amounts of progress. And now it's time for Matthew and me to finally get to the discussion we've been alluding to the entire time. And real quick, I'm going to lay out our premises, well, at least my premise, and then I'll lay out Matthew's premise. So real quick, Matthew, I'm just going to lay it out, and then we'll get into the actual discussion. I'm going to make sure it's really short so we can get into the meat of it. My belief is that the Russian forces are withdrawing, and they don't have any kind of, I guess you could say, ulterior motive for withdrawing, rather than their supply situation is completely dissolved in the area, as well as the poor, I guess you say, lack of properly trained manpower has led to the defensive situation in this area to be completely unattainable. And so the Russians are doing, as they said on TV the other day, they're moving their forces to the other side of the Dnieper River to set up defensible positions that will require a lot less manpower, a lot less effort, and a lot less supplies. And so real quick, I'm going to allow Matthew to lay out his point as well, and then we'll actually get into discussing the two sides, and also maybe throw a poll on it.
So mainly speaking, my position is they should not keep chasing the Russians out. They should wait, be cautious, and make sure that there isn't some kind of ulterior motive for them retreating. There's been talk of maybe it's a trap, but that's unclear. We don't have any evidence of that. But I think if the Ukrainians keep chasing them out and chasing the Russians down where they don't have a chance to regroup, that the Ukrainians will eventually get overextended. The Russians will end up fighting back, and then the Ukrainians will be caught in a bad situation where they're away from their supply lines and they don't have a chance to regroup themselves. But that's just my take on it. Enforcer, do you have anything to add to that?
I would. It's a bit of a counter. I think that the Ukrainian advance right now and the speed at which it's going is incredibly good. And while I said the other day that it will most likely be 2 to 3 weeks until they really pushed in, right now they're putting an undue amount of pressure on Russian defenders that are trying to cross the Dnieper River. And not only that, but right now, considering that they've already made it into Kherson itself and fighting has begun there, although we don't have any videos of it, they are threatening the only crossing that the Russians can use to get their tanks and equipment back to the other side of the river. And if they were able to do this, let's say that the Antonovsky crossing here in Kherson was captured by the Ukrainian forces on one end and rendered unusable, that would put all of the pressure on the Russian forces on this side of the river still, which, as far as we know, there are still over 10,000 of them right now. All the pressure would be put on them to keep on fighting and probably try and conduct a breakthrough to once again relieve the Antonovsky Bridge crossing so that way they can keep on evacuating their forces, or they'll starve out, maybe have a small trickle of them get across the Dnieper River from Novokhovka and the Antonovsky Rubber Bridge, and then be forced to surrender or face starvation or freezing in the winter weather. That's the way I see it going. And so in this instance, I didn't actually expect that the Ukrainians would go with the, I guess you could say, most balls to the wall strategy that you could ever pull off, but they're going with it right now. And if they are able to pull that off, and it looks like they may be able to, they may end up with what is a decisive victory on their hands and around 11 to 12,000 Russian prisoners of war captured within the next week.
Enforcer, I will add that I might potentially, I don't know exactly what the Ukrainians' capacity is to keep pushing them out. If they have the ability to do so, then, I mean, there might not be anything wrong with them just going ahead and pushing them back. But I would have a hard time believing they can actually keep up themselves moving out at this pace, because they are moving incredibly fast. And to move all these supplies and everything needed with them, that would be a hell of a feat. Is that feasible, or what do you think?
It is feasible, and if we go off of a precedent that's already been laid out in this war, for example, at Izium and Balaklia, we've got to remember that Ukrainian forces in this area moved around 15 miles a day. So I believe, if I'm correct, they went all the way from Volokhiv Yar to Kupiansk in 48 hours, if I'm correct. And if I'm remembering the news correctly, it was almost 2 days that they moved 30 miles, and their supply lines, as far as we could tell off of video evidence, were still operating almost at top efficiency then. Of course, it won't be maximum efficiency because the front lines will be extending and getting farther away from their depots, and because of that, it will take longer and more effort to transport materials and supplies to the front. But we already know, based off of video evidence, that the Ukrainian supply line is so good that they can transport freshly baked cakes from bakeries to the front line, and they are still completely moist, and and they're actually still edible. It's almost as if they're baked fresh. So based off of that, we know that if their supply lines do, I guess you could say, get a little stretched, we have to make sure to put that in context. Stretched would be they might not be able to get a fresh chocolate cake on the front line tomorrow, but they'll still be well fed and well supplied with the arms and materials they need to keep pushing forward. So I think that it's entirely possible that they could put this massive amount of pressure on the Russians, not put a lot of strain on themselves, and end up encircling them and forcing them into surrendering.
Well, look, if they can actually keep up and do that, and their logistics can keep up with their forces, I will be like beyond impressed. I'm already very impressed with how they performed so far. They outperformed honestly what I expected. And if they can do that, this will be one of the most effective militaries I've ever seen.
And if they can pull this off, I've honestly got to say, this war, which on a historical scale is as significant as the Finnish Winter War or the Russo-Polish War of 1920, this war is going to go down in the books as one of the wars that had some of the most impressive strategies pulled off, some of the cutting-edge ideas of technology being used at the same time, and a complete underdog story that went and flipped around. It's a David and Goliath story right now, and if they are able to pull this off, David just killed Goliath in Kherson, and this will practically be the end of the war. We most likely will never see the Russians recover if these 11 to 12,000 soldiers surrender on the northern bank of the Dnieper River. They won't have forces to relocate like they're hoping anywhere else in the south or Donetsk or in the northeast in Luhansk. They will have to work with what they have left, and we already know that they're barely hanging on in those areas, and so the war may start grinding to an end within a matter of months, for sure, maybe even by the time of early spring next year, if the Ukrainians pull off what we're seeing they might be doing right now. And so with that, I hope we address that fairly well, and I've seen that a load of y'all, while we've been discussing this, have put up y'all's opinion in the poll, and it looks like 1,400 of y'all, which is a whopper of a poll, have voted on this, and so let's hear what they're saying.
And yes, indeed, a whole bunch of people have weighed into this poll, and the question is, do you think that if Ukraine keeps chasing the Russians out, that they will become overextended? So it ties directly into the conversation we just had. It looks like only 19% said that Ukraine will overextend, 18% said I don't know, and 62% said no, Ukraine should keep going. Now, on this one, y'all know where I stand on it. It looks like the overwhelming majority think that they should keep going, so apparently y'all think the logistics can keep up. And maybe you're right. I'm sort of taking an educated guess here. I'm always a little bit of a skeptic. I trust Ukraine has the ability to keep fighting very strongly, but, you know, that seems like that would be something that might be overextending them. I still have to stick with that a little bit, but I have faith in Ukraine, so maybe it'll turn out differently. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, of course, I agree with the 63% because this poll is based off a discussion we're having right now. And Matthew, while not a lot of people, according to the poll, are agreeing with Matthew, I do have to say Matthew has a decent amount of merit. Caution should always be exercised, especially in war. In situations like these, almost appear to be too good to be true. But in this instance, and especially seeing that the Ukrainians have gone with a strategy that I thought in the back of my head, I literally thought about it for 5 seconds and never mentioned it because I thought, it would be impossible. It's like, they wouldn't pull off something this brazen. But yet they are, based off of what we're seeing, they are doing it. If they can reach the Antonovsky Bridge within the next 48 hours, they have just won the most decisive victory in the war yet. And I honestly think, seeing what they've done and the progress they've made today in that direction, they should keep this up. Because they are going to be probably achieving a victory that no one ever thought was possible. And if anyone ever doubted Ukraine, this would be the largest evidence that Ukraine has a fighting chance at taking back everything that they've lost so far in this war. And so with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well. Now 1,703 of y'all have voted on it. But before we continue to cover that poll, let's move on to the next one, because we've seen that Matthew's been throwing up some very interesting polls tonight, and I want to make sure we cover all of them. So with that, on to the next one.
Right, so we have 2 more polls to go over, and the next one said, do you think it was tactically smart for Ukraine to move in directly behind the Russian withdrawal? It looks like 67% said yes, they must advance quickly, 18% said maybe, and 15% said no, they should cautiously wait. And that is a pretty similar poll to the last one I put up, and the results are pretty similar as well. So, Enforcer, would you like to go over that one again?
Yes, I would. I believe that they should move quickly, and this is one of the few times we've ever said what the Ukrainians will most likely be doing, and based off of their movements, they are going straight for the bridge. And this is something very important to remember, Matthew. The Russians cannot handle this kind of PR disaster right here, because imagine this. They reach the bridge, the Ukrainians capture it, there's over 10,000 Russian soldiers still trapped both south of Kherson in this pocket, we'll call it the Belozerka pocket, and then up in the Inhalets pocket up here. The Russians can't blow the dam, because if they blow the dam, the floodwaters are going to be reaching towards Russian forces in the south in Zelenskyy Sands, and if it does flood the other banks, they're going to be screwing over 10,000 Russian soldiers on that side of the river as well. And regardless of how much the Russians support this war in the public, and how much the government wants to keep winning this war, that would be catastrophic, both for their image on the home front, and also to their future, because not only are they going to be screwing over the Ukrainians that would have captured the bridge, they're going to be screwing over 10,000 Russian soldiers north of the Dnieper River.
Do you think Putin would do it anyway, regardless of the troop losses?
I don't think he would, because while he's nuts, and he's obviously a lunatic, and that's why we keep on talking about that dam, because it's always a possibility that this lunatic could do something bold and nuts. If he killed that many Russian soldiers and just left them to a terrible fate, according to the Russians, Russian prisoners get tortured and killed on the spot by Ukrainian forces, and he left them to a fate like that to the Russian public, imagine what would happen in Russia. The war would pretty much have to end just due to domestic pressures alone at that point. But then again, I could be wrong, but I still don't see, especially seeing what the Ukrainians are doing right now, that the Russians would blow up that dam, because the Ukrainians are practically going to be holding an entire Russian army hostage on the northern bank of the Dnieper River. And so with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
Right, and the third and final poll of the first question segment says, do you think the Russians have placed booby traps in Kherson? It looks like 79% said yes, they most likely placed those traps. 15% said maybe, and 6% said no, they didn't have the time. Now, I think they personally had the time to do it if they wanted to, but there's no telling if there's actually any there. So I have to say maybe, because we haven't seen any evidence yet. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, I'm actually going to have you reread the prompt of the poll real quick, because I actually saw some people in the live chat saying a very good point that we might get to in a second. So can you reread that again?
Do you think the Russians have placed booby traps in Kherson?
Yes, I entirely think they have. I don't think that should slow the Ukrainian advance. I think that they should still continue with rapid speed, yet make sure to exercise the most caution available to them, the best that they can do. But they certainly have laid out booby traps of varying size. Of course, there's going to be the grenade traps, on doorways, the tripwire traps, stuff like that. But that just comes with the territory. And hopefully the citizens inside of Kherson, knowing that they're all patriots, and we've seen how many patriotic Ukrainians there are behind the lines that have been in occupied Russian territory, they will most likely rat out the Russians and be like, hey, there's a tripwire right here, and if you lift up this helmet, there's probably a grenade under it. And they'll hopefully help out the soldiers to make sure that there are as minimal casualties as possible. And so with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well, but I would have to agree with everyone. It would be foolish to not say that there are no booby traps there. There must be booby traps there. It's the only, I guess you say, logical conclusion there could be. And so with that, I hope that answers that poll fairly well. And we are moving on into the question segment. So let's answer 3 questions from the chat real quick while I go turn on my fan, because it's been off the whole time.
All right, so while the Enforcer cools down from that heated conversation, we're moving on to our first super chat, which is from Dio Split, who is a longtime channel viewer who puts in a very generous $60 super chat. Dio says, Slava Ukraine, and pick a question from the chat, please, guys, and a big yeah!
And thank you so much for the support, Dio. And also, thank you so much for being around forever and being here for such a momentous night. Tonight's a night that is just full of joy. I mean, it's full of joy for me, full of joy for the people that have been liberated, the soldiers on the front, everyone. And I thank you so much once again for helping us to keep covering the news and helping us to get to this day where we could report it. And so with that, let's get a question from the live chat.
All right, so real quick, the chat is moving very quickly. Let me grab the super chat real quick. And there we go. All right, so the live chat question goes to Midwest Vikinger, who says, Enforcer, don't Russian tanks have escape hatches for crews on the bottom?
I don't know, actually. That's a great question. Let's pull it up. Do Russian tanks have escape hatches? I feel like the initial answer, I would say, and let's see if I'm correct, would be no, because that could be a massive weak spot if they ever run over a mine, but let's see if that's true. Soviet tanks were fitted with hidden hatches for soldiers or civilians to reach in and pull the crews of the knocked out Soviet tanks through, rather than the crew climbing out themselves. So let's see if we can find any images of this. So we can see an image right here of what appears to be a T-64 and the hatch that appears to be under the driver's cab, if I'm seeing that correctly. But let me move to the other clip here. And it's hard to tell what kind of tank that is. It may be a T-64 again. We can also see some kind of a round hatch on what appears to be the T-14 Armada. So it looks like it is the case. It looks like I'm wrong, as a matter of fact. There is an escape hatch on Soviet-era tanks, from what we can tell. There's not a lot of pictures of it, however. But let's go and try and get a little bit of a better question. Better answer. Leopard 1 and 2 and the T-72 have emergency escape hatch for the driver in the... Oh! It's just for the driver. That's why we never see the drivers bailing out, Matthew, but they always pop up on the road somewhere, is because they're going out of the hatch in the bottom of the tank.
Interesting. So wait a minute. So there's enough room to roll out from underneath the tank?
Hell, I mean, on a T-72, probably hardly at all.
Mr. Lunchtime, might as well go ahead and hang it up.
Mr. Lunchtime needs to quit. He needs to retire. If the tank gets hit, he's done for. Because look at that. Like, there's no room under that tank. It's like a T-72 has like a ground clearance down there of like 2 feet. And that's it. I mean, that's going to be a pretty tight squeeze to get out of, but somehow we have seen apparently a lot of drivers do that. When the tank gets hit, instead of going out of the top hatch, they just go out of the bottom of the tank, and that's why I'm always saying, we see the driver and the commander and the gunner get out of the turret. We haven't seen the driver yet. Oh, wait a minute, there's all 3 of them. I'm always wondering, whenever we see those, where the hell did the driver come from? Apparently, he's literally coming from down under. And so I guess you can ask the drivers, whenever they bail out of these tanks, Matthew, do you come from a land down under?
Wow. Also, like, seriously speaking, it seems like they would probably get burned on like the exhaust pipes or something, or some engine component under there.
No. The exhaust pipes are completely connected to the rear of the tank. The engine and the exhaust is all separate from the crew.
Huh.
That's a standard tank design. That was actually emphasized first time in history by the Renault FT-17, a very antiquated tank by today's standards. But it was the first tank in the world that separated the engine compartment and everything involved with it from the crew compartment. And you can actually see this on an illustration here. Here's the crew compartment, and you can see this kind of thickish black line that I'm moving my cursor across, and that's what separated the crew from the engine compartment.
Now, I really like that tank, too. That's a cool little design right there.
It's neat, isn't it? You could equip a machine gun on this thing or a short-barreled 40mm, and they're really cool. I love these tanks. I think they're the coolest one that came out of the First World War, and they were also the first one in the world that used a one-turret design. In fact, they were the first tank to ever use a turret design at all. So it was very innovational in a lot of regards.
Back in the day, that was the first tank I got on World of Tanks. The first one.
I hate to say it, Matthew, but I think what you're talking about is the Russian MS-1. This little thing here.
Oh, no, I know, it was definitely the Renault, for sure. Like, I remember that thing vividly. Yes, it was definitely that one.
Yeah, I just gotta say, I don't know about y'all, but it's always been my dream. And also, just in case y'all don't know, Hoodoo, Texas actually has one of these things.
Wait a minute, for real?
Yeah, he has one. He sent me a picture of it at the beginning of the war, and he had a Ukrainian flag draped on the side of it. But he has a operational, I believe it's a replica Renault FT-17.
Hey, Hoodoo, we're going to be dropping by soon. I hope you don't mind.
And I've seen one of these things as a replica, FT-17 for sale. It's been up for sale forever, I believe, if I'm correct. Let me see if it's on this website. This one's $130,000. This is not the one I'm talking about. Let me go find the other one. It's this one here on carscoms.com. It's $10,000. It's a replica, however, but it's still a functional Renault. It operates like the original one. And I've always looked at this thing, and it's always enamored me. It's like, wow, what is this? No. But it's always enamored me that there's a Renault FT-17 out there that you can get for $10,000, and I just love these things. They're very neat. Anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that question fairly well, and thank you so much once again, Dio, for the support and helping this channel to keep running so we can keep on covering this news and also go down really cool rabbit holes. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Right. And up next, we have a very generous $100 super chat from Hal Rose, who does not put in a comment. But Hal, thank you very much for that very generous support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much for the support, Hal. You didn't throw in a comment. What in the world? But I thank you so much once again for the support nonetheless. It helps this channel to keep on running. It helps the wheels to keep on turning, the lights to keep on in the background, so that way we can keep covering this news. And thanks to viewers like you who send in massive amounts of support. It always blows me away when folks just send in massive amounts of support, because I can't believe that y'all put that much, I guess you could say, value to our channel. You know, like, y'all find it to be worth that much while to send in that kind of support and help us to keep this thing running. And so I thank you so much, Hal. You didn't throw in a comment, but the support says a lot, and thanks to it, we'll be able to keep this channel running. And so with that, we are on to the last one of this segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the location unknowns.
And real quick, I just saw Hal Rose put in a comment in the live chat. He said, "What do you have to do around here to get a crying Russian bot coffee mug?" And Hal, we actually used to have those, I think, like right back at the beginning when we first started our merch.
Dang it, we did.
It was a long time ago. We might have to bring that back.
I think one thing that I have seen though is that we don't usually get a lot of, I guess you could say, people interested in our merch normally. Usually the only way we let people know that there's merch is whenever there's a limited run, because we don't ever plug it on stream, although we do have merch. So if you want to get some, go down to the link in the description below. You can get Enforcer channel merch. It's pretty nice. We made the designs ourselves. I thought they were pretty good. Huge credit to Matthew. He did put most of the effort into making them. I've provided a couple of critiques, so I guess you could say that's like 5% or less of the work, but still, it's great stuff. I encourage everyone to get some. It helps this channel to keep on running, helps to support us, and y'all get a cool shirt out of it, or a hoodie, or a mug. But moving on from that, we should bring those mugs back, because right now, Matthew, you know, these bots, like, their heads are exploding. Like there's like they don't have anywhere to go. Like, the worst thing they could do now is come onto this channel and go, Ukraine sucks, you know, and that's it. Like, there's nothing they can add. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Hal. And also, that is a good question. We might be trying to bring that back as another limited edition run. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the final one of the first segment goes to Sylvester the Cat, who puts in a $55 donation. And Sylvester, as everyone knows, is a longtime channel viewer who says, "Hello, Matt and Enforcer. Around Kherson, are the Ukrainians simply rushing into abandoned territory, or are they breaking through Russian lines? And shouldn't there be a massive prisoner haul? Leaf Spring Tanker."
And thank you so much for the support, Sylvester. And I want to answer that question real quick, but I saw something in the live chat I thought was a pretty good question. I think we ought to clarify this real quick, Matthew. Let's see. Dan Gachne said, "Why don't you advertise your merch? That's illogical." Well, the reason why we don't is because it's a little too commercial for my taste. It's a little bit too monetized, and we don't want to make people feel like this entire thing is, you know, just trying to milk it, you know, because while we rely on support, you know, because of course we have to eat and keep lights on and stuff, I don't want to sit here and make it seem like I'm trying to, like, badger the hell out of people for a buck like y'all are at Disney World or something. And that's why we don't advertise the merch. Because imagine I'm sitting there talking about, you know, like a Ukrainian family that just got killed by a Russian missile attack, 7 dead, and then right afterwards I go, "Hey, by the way, you want a shirt? Go to the merch store." It doesn't really seem right. So we have a merch store. We don't plug it, though, because of that reason. It just seems to be distasteful, especially when covering something like this. But to move on to your question, Sylvester, and thank you so much once again for the support. And also, everyone give a huge round of applause for Sylvester. He is a old guard member. He has been here since day 4. I remember you being here that long ago. And so with that, round Kherson, are the Ukrainians simply pushing into abandoned territory, or are they breaking through Russian lines? They are breaking through Russian lines. The lines aren't that strong anymore because a decent amount of soldiers have moved off of them. But at the same time, they are breaking through these lines. Although, I guess you could really say it doesn't have the credit as the, like, in terms of a breakthrough that the one at Balaklia had, because that was a serious breakthrough against an actual Russian line. And the Ukrainians just shoved their way through it and then just raced towards Kupiansk. That was a solid breakthrough. This one is dealing with a lot less forces, much, I guess you could say, sparser defensive force, and so they're not having to push through as much in terms of numbers and manpower that they did in the Balaklia area. But still, they are conducting a complete breakthrough and breaking through the lines. Now, to answer the other part of that question, are they breaking through? Shouldn't there be a massive prisoner haul? There should be. I don't know how many of them are surrendering right now, but I feel like there should be some kind of a massive prisoner influx. We do have a video showing that in the location unknowns, which we are about to get to in a second, and I will show you some of the prisoners that are being taken on, and they're actually happy to be liberated from the Russian army as well. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, Sylvester, and thank you so much once again for the support. And also, everyone give a huge thanks to Sylvester the Cat for also being a Lee Spring tanker. He actually operated in a part of his life M1 Abrams, which is really cool, and also our favorite tank. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope we've been able to address all of the questions in this segment fairly well, and it's now time for us to move on to the rest of the news for the night. There's really not a lot around the rest of the front lines. All of it was largely contained right in the Kherson area of the liberations. So let's move to the location unknowns while the live chat's going crazy. I just saw that, Matthew, and that was
For sure. Real quick, and for sure, I have to say thank you all so much for the very generous support. I feel really bad just sitting here and kind of ignoring it in the meantime. We have to recognize that generous support, and thank you all so much for that.
And real quick, since Matthew did do that, we always get complaints from people that they want to hear the news. We always feel a little pressure to try and keep the question segments as contained as possible, but we do see the support when it comes in right at the moment, and I'm almost having to try and pull a poker face over here because I'm always like, oh my God, like, thank you, because y'all keep us alive. Like, and that's, and I know that, that's something that, anyways, we're not going to go down that side road. It keeps us alive, and so when we see people send in support, we're like, oh my God, but thank you so much to all of y'all once again. And also, Mark is in the house again, but we'll get back to that in the next question segment. But thank you to all of y'all so much once again. Moving on to the location unknowns, however, we can see some Ukrainian soldiers creeping forward through a wheat field while under fire. And so, here's the video.
Арта, давай, арта. Точка Г.
When you see the soldiers in the field,
Давай, точка Г.
you see that they are saying that they need to move forward a little bit quicker. We hear some artillery landing as well. We now see them crouch and moving through the wheat still. We can see one soldier in front of him also crawling. I believe this man is actually crawling still, and they've made a very beaten path through the wheat. We hear more artillery coming in. And I don't know about y'all, but for some reason I feel like we've shown this video on channel before. I don't remember it exactly, but it's ringing a lot of bells. So let me know if it is, because I'm watching this and I feel that it is, but I'm not really sure right now.
Ты рюкзак скинул? Дай теплик заберу, дай. Теплик заберу, дай. Где теплик?
Okay, so it appears that a lot of people are saying that this is old. So sorry, everyone. It looks like I pulled an old video that was from earlier on in the war, and I just didn't remember it, so sorry about that, everyone. We're going to be moving on to the next clip, where we can then see a firefight occurring in Ukraine today. Now, this one was today. It was time-stamped as today. Sorry about that once again, everyone. Every once in a while that does happen. I always feel a little bit goofy whenever it does, because I'm like, dang it, I should have realized that. But then again, I think I've covered this for 264 days, and every single week, 261 days. Every single week, we have almost 300 news points to cover. I don't even know how many weeks have passed at this point. So there's probably thousands of videos that I've had to see. Almost probably 10,000 of them. So I guess every once in a while I slip. Sorry about that once again. Anyways, let's get to this footage of another firefight that occurred today in Ukraine. We We hear some bullets bouncing off the ground around him, and we can see the soldier firing his gun. You see him shouldering it again and firing off into the distance.
Я пуст. Я перезаряжаю.
And this is actually an extension of the old video in Kherson. It has a little bit of included footage that we didn't see before. We can see the man messing around with his AK.
Сука! Пидорас!
Now let me skip forward and see.
Ебать, портовый.
So for the large part, rather than the first 15 seconds, the rest of this was already shown in the Kherson area. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip of location unknown news as well. So we really only have 4 bits of location unknown news once we get down to it. So moving on into the next clip, we can see an R-18 drone dropping some nades on the Russians, and it's doing a pretty good job. And so with that, here's the video. Also, Matthew, this is that typical vlogging music, isn't it?
Yeah, that lo-fi music.
Hey guys, it's the Enforcer, and today... Wait a minute, no, wait a minute, let me do this where y'all recognize it. Hi guys, it's Casey Neistat, and today we're going to be going down the streets of Tokyo, so let's go.
Were you about to say Casey Neistat?
Yeah.
Casey
yeah,
in the stat?
Yeah, I was about to say Casey Neistat, because I don't really know the guy well. But it's Casey Neistat, I believe, if I'm correct, Matthew.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not really sure, to be honest, but it's definitely not in the stat.
Yeah. All right. So, guys, let's go down the street to the local store and let's watch this R-18 blow up a Russian tank. You know, they always play that on a vlog, this exact track right here, whenever they're traveling in a car and they're hanging out the window with their arm out going, ha, this is so fun, I've never been in the wind before, or something like that. That's always the music they play. And it looks like the Ukrainians
straight off the YouTube audio library.
Yeah, straight out. Honestly, I think that I'm not particularly sure because it's always tricky because you'll think it's copyright free, but then someone made a small variation of the song and copyrighted it. So we can't really play the whole thing on stream. But we can see this R-18 now lining up the tank. And also everyone else is saying that that's a different category of music. I honestly have to say I'm not really a big fan of that category of music. Never really heard it before, but I don't know. I mean, I can't even really commentate on that one, but we can see them dropping the bomblet, and it falls right under the tank. Also, someone asked a question I was wanting to ask. Who's still watching that? But with that, we're going to be watching this video as the R-18 now adjusts its fire and drops another RPG or mortar-shaped bomblet, which now hits directly onto the tank, causing a plume of fire. And once again dropping, and this time causing a severe ammo detonation. Now you see the tank is turned into multiple burning pieces on the ground, and with that, this R-18 has claimed another one lost. Now, one thing some people are saying, I did notice this before I shot this video, it says 2021, but we have seen footage before on this war that was clear, that we were able to confirm was taken just about a week ago, and then the timestamp on it said it was taken 6 months earlier, or 6 months in the future. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on to the next clip of Location Unknown News, where we can see friends. And Matthew, you might remember this. Ratatouille, Ratatouille. He's returned. Yes. So let's check it out. Ratatouille.
I thought that was in the video for a minute. I might just be blind, but that looks more like a mouse and a rat.
Yeah, it's a mouse. It's a field mouse. But look at it, Matthew. Ratatouille, Ratatouille. I can't get over that guy holding the mouse in his hand. He said Ratatouille like 15 times, one after the other. Like he was just, that man was just like, he was living on cloud 9 with that rat in his hand. He was like, Ratatouille. Ratatouille. But still, it's a very cute little video to see. It's nice to see the Ukrainian soldiers are still taking care of little things and enjoying the smaller things in life, like this literally small field mouse. With that, we're now going to be moving on into the next clip of Location Unknown News, where we can see that the Ukrainians are even liberating the Russian army, as they liberated a Russian prisoner who had been forced to fight in this war. And this guy seems happier in Ukrainian captivity than he did in the Russian army. And so here's the video. This guy's having some food. He's smiling. He's laughing. What's crazy to me, Matthew, is that even after all of the also that dog's a mood, but even after all of this war and all of the fighting that's been going on and the animosity that's grown in between both sides, and we've even, experienced that here on the stream, it's crazy to see that sometimes they can take a prisoner that's a Russian and just sit down and have a laugh and joke around for a second with him. It's really bizarre to see. And this guy honestly seems like he's ecstatic to now be a prisoner.
Look what's in his hand on the other side.
What
Did you see that?
I didn't. What's in it?
In the Ukrainian soldier's hand.
Oh. Oh.
He's not taking any risks.
No, he's not. He's like, hey, we're having a fun time, but if you move wrong, I'm gonna stab you. Or poke you. I'm sorry, I can't say it on YouTube. He's gonna poke him.
Ми русских кормим. Бач, ми пленных берем, мы не обижаем. Мы не Моторола, сука. Пойдет тебе, да? Слоняра. Нормально. Скажи слава Украине. Слава Украине, героям слава, слава Богу, блядь, пацанам из Кривого Рога, сука. Бойся Бога и пацанов с Кривого Рога. Давай, давай.
So with that's the end of the video, and everyone's saying the knives for opening food, yeah, but we were just kidding around there. And so with that, it's nice to see that the Ukrainians are even going through the extra effort of liberating the Russian soldiers, and they even seem happy about the whole liberating thing. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the final clip of Location Unknown News, where we can see some next level tech. The Ukrainian forces are now dropping the motorized go-karts, and they're now picking up the Paul Blart mobiles. The Segway.
Oh no. Oh no.
They've reached the next level.
I have never seen a Segway with like off-road tires like that on it.
I've never seen a combat Segway. Honestly, Matthew, I felt like that famous tweet where someone said, "I've never seen someone drinking Diet Dr. Pepper." You know, if you know what I'm talking. I felt like that. I felt like I was saying, "I've never seen a combat Segway." But with that, we're going to be moving on into the next clip. But still, it's pretty crazy to see that they have a Segway. I never expected that to ever show up on the front lines, but now they are. With that, we're now moving on out of the Location Unknowns and on into the next clip of news in the northeastern area near Svatove. And I'm waiting. Honestly, Matthew, after I did that voice, I was like, I'm waiting to see what happens because of that. It's not political. We're just using the voice because that was what it was in reference to. But anyways, moving on towards Svatove, we saw a tank cooking. Wait a minute. Hang on. Before we move on, I think y'all may all be interested in this. I know this is Ukraine war news, but Kojak said the Segway's creator was killed on a Segway. Is that true? Segway.
I think that sounds familiar. I might have heard that somewhere.
Creator death. Accidental falling off a cliff while riding a Segway. Wow. What a way to die by your own invention. Okay, now that we've actually seen that's true, that's the craziest thing ever. We're now going to be moving on to watching this clip of a Russian tank roasting. Also good music to fit the scene, and we can see the Russian tank largely in pieces, being destroyed. Pretty nice, by and large. And so with that, that's the end of the video, but it's really cool to see that another T-72B has been destroyed outside Svatove. Of course, credit to the 79th Airborne Brigade, which conducted the strike. With that, we're now going to be moving on to the next clip where you see the 79th hitting even more Russian tanks. If you thought that the 79th couldn't hit another one, well, they did. When you can see from the Stugna's camera, the missile on its flight hitting the tank. and destroying it. We can now see a nice fire brewing, and that lets us know that that tank will live no longer. That's the end of that video, but once again, the 79th Airborne Brigade is really conducting a decent amount of activity in the Svatove area and helping in great leaps and bounds to help destroy the Russian forces that are there. And what better way to keep on going? With that, we're now going to be moving on down into the Kremina area, where we saw a grad volley. It was a very nice grad volley. We can see this man dancing. He's really in the moment. He's really in the fields. And while they're all in the fields, they're about to vaporize some Russian positions with a grad. And there they go, flying off into the distance. A very nice sight to see. Grads aren't the most impressive MLRS that it's on the front lines anymore. The HIMARS, of course, took that position, but it's still nice to know that they're using them, and they're hopefully hitting Russian positions. With that, we're now going to be moving to Lyman, because while this is some old footage, Lyman was liberated almost a month and a half ago. We've never seen this footage before, and so I want to bring y'all back in time, about a month and a half ago, to the Battle of Lyman, and where we saw the Ukrainian National Guard helping to liberate the village. And so with that, here's the video.
Тихо там наші.
Here's some gunfire in the distance. You can see this armored car firing its machine gun. And we can see this marksman down there on the ground, laying prone with his rifle. We now see them moving on forward as another armored car passes by. Dang, is that a cool looking armored car? What kind is that?
That's really futuristic looking. That's definitely from America, I think.
I think it is. I think it's one of those. I think it's one of the. It's got to be one of the MRAPs. I'm fairly certain. But also another thing about this armored car.
Oshkosh, I think.
It kind of looks like a Cybertruck, a little bit. It's not a Cybertruck, obviously not, but still really cool. See this man climbing up onto the side of the truck.
Ah, riding SWAT style.
Oh yeah, oh that's cool. And now they're off. Oh man, imagine them doing a drive-by, like a raid on the Russians like this, just hanging off the side, firing off their AKs. That would look kind of cool. It wouldn't be effective, but it would be cool.
They definitely can't hear him tapping through that glass.
No. Also, excuse me, sir. Excuse me. Don't tap the glass. You're scaring the fish. Don't tap the glass, man. Anyways, with that, that's the end of the video, and it's nice to see a little bit of action going on months ago, well, almost a month and a half ago, at the Battle of Lyman. And how
wait. People are saying that vehicle is Ukrainian-made Novator vehicle. Could you pull that up real quick?
Novator armored vehicle. Holy moly!
Man, now that is one of the coolest vehicles Ukraine has ever made. That is like top tier design.
That is a lean, mean machine right there. That is a cool one. And I honestly, it's so cool that Matthew and me both mistook it for an American armored car, but no, this is an indigenous Ukrainian design, and I gotta give him credit. Whoever came up with the aesthetics of the design was really into it. They had a passion for this, and I think that the United States ought to look into getting a contract for these things, because if anything, they look incredibly cool. Whether they're effective or not, of course, is always another question. And also, someone made a not CGI, a 3D rendering of it in some kind of a program.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is a really cool truck. That's just a cool one. I love it. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from Lyman. We're now going to be moving towards Bakhmut, and Bakhmut has largely been overshadowed by the news coming out of Kherson, and we don't have a lot to cover here, but we do have 4 pieces of news. And so starting off, we can see that it was too much to bear. This was a really funny video in a way. So the Russians have pulled a Tom and Jerry here. They've attached a mirror to a stick, and they're sticking it out the window to try and see where the Ukrainians are, and I don't even have to explain what's about to happen. Just watch it. You'll see. And then make sure, Matthew, because I know you're always busy with the live chat. Huge credit to Matthew. He's a hard worker in that live chat. make sure to watch this one because this is just weird and hilarious. So here it is. What the hell is he doing? Like, what did he do?
What
Like,
happened?
I don't even know. Like, he was holding the mirror got shot, and then he went, eh, and then he just went in the corner and he hid. Like, he's, like,
Was it shell shock?
from what I can tell, he's fine. But for some reason, he just freaked out.
Oh, he got hit by a sniper, maybe?
No, I don't know, because watch, the bullet goes through the mirror. You can see that right there. But he doesn't get hit by anything. Like, he didn't even get hit. Like, I went through the Reddit on this one. I went through the comment section, and someone said that he got hit near the upper left part of his chest, but when you watch the video, he didn't.
Was it ricochet? Did it ricochet off the mirror and hit him?
No, because you can see the bullet clearly go through, because the mirror fragments are going to the left side of the screen right there, you see? And so that bullet,
Something had to hit him. His that reaction was too severe to just be like shell shock or something.
but I mean, like, he's not even moving. He's just huddled in the corner. He's not like addressing any wound or anything like that. He just huddled up. You know, like the mirror got hit, he went, ah, and then he just went in the corner. Like, I think, and a lot of people are saying he got scared. I think he did get scared. And why in the world did the Russians even upload this video knowing that fact? So I don't even know. Anyways, that's the end of that clip. A very interesting look at what's going on at Bakhmut. It looks like they're not doing well. Moving on into the next clip, we can actually see that the Ukrainians have gotten quite confident in their position in this battle and have started to fire off leaflets telling the Russians how to surrender. And so here's the video. Now we gotta mute the music because that is the ultimate Chadman music or whatever, so I can't play it because it's copyrighted. But we can see them here loading up the leaflets into the special shells. You see them loading up the shells, getting them ready to go. And it looks like these are going to be fired out of a grad. Very unique. Monturn said some good psyops. Because of psyops, that's always a joke. Like it's always
Yes.
almost like everyone's talking about psyops himself. And so we now see them preparing the leaflet rounds. The leaflet rockets, more like it. We now see them loading them. Oh, look, they even have a wind vane. We now see that the grad's ready to fire. And Matthew, they're firing off leaflets, and on them it says, if you or a loved one has suffered from R18 mesothelioma, you may be entitled to financial compensation.
Oh no.
See them firing off the special rockets again. Imagine if one of them, Matthew, one of the leaflets said, we are trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty.
And they just go into a panic after that.
Oh, leave! Wait a minute, I don't even have my ladder yet. And then the
Russians don't even have warranties. They don't even know the term. Ladas don't need them.
I don't even think they have insurance in Russia for the most part. I think you just drive.
Oh, really?
Well, I'm just kidding about that. They do, but I'm sure a lot of people don't have to get insurance in Russia. I'm not really sure about that, though. But with that, that's the end of the video. And it's nice to see that they're shooting off some little leaflets telling the Russians that they ought to surrender and save themselves while they can. Moving on to the next clip in the Bakhmut area, we can see this raw picture. This has got to be one of the coolest ones I've seen from Bakhmut or anywhere in the war of a Ukrainian soldier firing off an RPG. That is a cool picture.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is a really cool, and I think that one ought to be put down in the books right there. If you open up a page in a book to the Ukraine war, that ought to be one of the pictures that is on one of the pages. On one of the pages, not pages. And so with that, we're now moving on into our last bit of news from the Bakhmut area, where we can see the Wagner Group and then we don't see them. Y'all want to know why we don't see the Wagner Group anymore, or the Wagner Group, as a lot of people always want to correct me? It's because they got vaporized. Here's the video. I don't think they're making it out of there. Like, I don't... That's wild when you look at that. The whole area got plastered. So with that, that's the end of that clip. But once again, it's showing that the Russians are no longer, well, they never were, and they're definitely not any longer, I'm trying to make that work somehow, having a good time in Bakhmut as they're taking on impressively high amounts of casualties, almost 700 to 1,000 a day, and not only that, they're not making any ground, and the Wagner Group appears to have just disappeared. And so with that, we're now going to be, well, there's no jokes I can make there because Wagner was a composer, not a magician. And so with that, we're now moving out of the Bakhmut area and down towards Donetsk in the area of Marinka, where you can see the conditions on the front line as of today, as filmed by a Ukrainian soldier.
Вторник, 8 ноября. О, блядь. Марьянка. Донецкая область. Я ебу, смотри, что сделала с городом. Тупо разъебали. Пидоры, сука. А тут еще, блядь, люди жили. Птичка. Птичка, птичка. Ебать. Пизда. Тупо пизда.
Now, you can see that the city, of course, has been heavily damaged. It appears that there's not a single building standing in the whole area that has not been completely destroyed. But still, even through this massive bombardment that's been going on for months, the relentless Russian assaults that have occurred in this area, the line holds. And the Ukrainians still hold these derelict and destroyed buildings now with the same determination that they had at the very beginning when these buildings were practically untouched. We're now going to be moving on out of the Donetsk region and the stalemate that's been there for quite some while, and into the area of Velika Novosilka, where we saw a Mad Max grad again. Now, a lot of y'all know that Ukraine isn't really the one to start up this whole Mitsubishi or Toyota Mad Maxing of vehicles. That goes to another group that has a name that sounds similar to IS. That was in the Middle East in the mid to late 2010s. But still, it's interesting to see the Ukrainians Mad Maxing some of their vehicles. And so with that, here's the video. Can't play the music, but you can see it firing. And now we can see him running and immediately packing it up again on the move. And that's one of the big benefits of a smaller Mad Max MLRS, is that while they carry a smaller amount of rockets, they can shoot and scoot a lot faster than a normal MLRS can. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this little clip and on into our last clip from the Southern Front. And once again, it's a grad. Actually, hang on. I don't think it is a grad. Wait a minute. Did I? Let me check something real quick. Did I miss that clip? Oh crap, we gotta go back to Kherson. So, while we're moving through the Southern Front, we're going to be going back to Kherson to cover a couple of clips there because it appears to have overlooked them. But we can see here the average Ukrainian soldier. Now, even if this is copyright, I have to play a few seconds of it because the music is hilarious. And so, here's the video. Why in the world does the music make it seem like he's on some kind of like a Chinese, like a mountain enjoying tea?
It's a little different.
Also, he has a little table and everything. This guy is living it up. And so with that, that's the end of the video. But of course, huge credit to the 98th Brigade for being one of the units that has been holding the southern line. With that, we haven't seen any movements in this area as well, and it's now time for us to return back to Kherson to cover two videos that I didn't show y'all earlier. Starting off with a tow Humvee. This is the first tow Humvee we have ever seen on the front lines. And so here's the video. Can't play it. That was really copyrighted. But we can see the tow right there on top of the Humvee as it moves on along in that desert tan. A very iconic color at this point. With that, we're now moving on into our last clip from the Kherson area, where you can also see the Ukrainians clearing a path. Now, this was the video I was wondering, did it show or did it not? And we didn't show it, so here's the video now. Also, real quick warning, this will be quite loud. Here's the video.
Вот это я понимаю.
Вот это залп, так залп.
And so to answer
What
Sylvester's
the
question,
hell was that?
to answer Sylvester's question from earlier, I think they're breaking the lines, and I think this is good evidence of that. But just to play it one more time, because the sound was unbelievable. This is the sound of 6 grad MLRSs firing at exactly the same time. So let's play this one more time, because this is what the Ukrainians were using in the Kherson area to break through some areas of the line, which is literal just bulk force and raw muscle. So let's listen to that one more time.
That is intimidating.
That is scary.
Вот это я понимаю.
Вот это залп, так залп.
And in case of y'all were wondering, Kolchak actually told us what this was for. He says that this is how Tasty Period gets its ground beef. And so with that, I had to read that one because that was about the rawest thing I've ever heard. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on out of Kherson again, and from those 2 clips near the front line. And now it's time for us to move on to Kyiv. Because while we've all had a wonderful time tonight, and we've all been seeing impressive news, it's made a lot of y'all, as I've seen in the live chat, cry tears of joy. It's made people feel great and warm inside, knowing that so many people have been liberated today, and as the days go by here in the future, only hundreds of thousands more will be as well. This can't last forever. And as we move to Kyiv, I have to let everyone know that tonight's news is rounding to an end. We will be now going to the speech from President Zelenskyy, and afterwards we'll be going into the question segment and answering all of the super chats that have been sent in, and also as many live chats as we possibly can. But before I get to the speech from President Zelenskyy, which is when most people log off of this, well, a decent amount, not a lot, but it's about 1,000 of y'all will get off of this video for the night and go to sleep. I just want to let you all know that it's been an absolute pleasure to cover the news so far in this war. It's been 261 days, and it's days like these that I cover the news for. It's unbelievable to think that on the first day of the war, everyone was scared that the Ukrainians would fall within 3 days to a week, and here we are 8 months later, watching what may potentially be the most embarrassing defeat of the Russian Federation in its entire history, right here in the area of Kherson. I don't know about y'all, but it's just unbelievable to think that we've existed as a channel, not just Matthew and me, but all of y'all that are here right now, all 8,200 of y'all, watching this channel and watching this progress day by day with us. I've just got to thank you all so much once again. And so with that, I'm not going to talk for too much longer. I just wanted to say thank you, and I wanted to, of course, reminisce a little bit on the impressive day of news that we've had. And so now it's time for us to move on to Kyiv and round out today's news with a speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. And so, without further ado, here he is, President Zelenskyy on day 261 of the war.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Сьогодні маємо хороші новини з півдня. Кількість українських прапорів, які повертаються на своє законне місце в рамках триваючої оборонної операції, вже десятки. 41 населений пункт звільнено. Я дякую всім нашим героям, які забезпечують це просування, Збройні сили, розвідка, спеціальні служби, усім. А особливо відзначу бійців 28-ї окремої механізованої бригади, 46-ї десантно-штурмової бригади, 60-ї окремої піхотної бригади і 128-ї окремої гірсько-штурмової бригади. Тих, хто реалізовує наступальні дії. Дякую вам, хлопці. Зараз ми всі щасливі бачити, як українці, що залишились в окупованих селах і містах, зустрічають наших воїнів. Багато хто зараз майже щогодинно звіряє, куди ж дійшли наші підрозділи і де ще піднято наш державний прапор. Але, радіючи, всі ми маємо пам'ятати і зараз, і завжди, що означає цей рух, що кожен крок наших сил оборони – це життя наших воїнів. Життя, які віддаються за свободу для українців. Усе, що відбувається зараз, досягнуто місяцями жорстокої боротьби, досягнуто і хоробрістю, і болем, і втратами. Це не ворог йде, це українці великою ціною женуть окупантів, як і на сході нашої країни, на Харківщині, як ще раніше на півночі, Київщина, Сумщина, Чернігівщина. Зараз Миколаївщина, Херсонщина. Маємо пройти увесь шлях на полі бою та в дипломатії, щоб на всій нашій землі, по всьому нашому міжнародно визнаному кордону були наші прапори, українські прапори і більше ніколи жодних ворожих триколорів. Це буде. Фактично, одразу за нашими воїнами у звільнені райони йдуть ті, хто відновлює всі умови для нормального життя. Перше і базове – це розмінування. Окупанти залишають по собі тисячі мін і боєприпасів, що не розірвалися. Я часто чув оцінки, що очищення України від російських мін вимагатиме десятиліть часу. Ми не можемо стільки чекати, ми повинні за роки зробити те, що десь ще в світі могло відбуватись десятиліттями після боїв. В першу чергу розміновуються будинки, соціальні об'єкти, комунікації, дороги, увесь простір життя людей. Але окупанти мінують все – лінії електропередач, будівлі підприємств, поля, ліси. На піку мінного забруднення в Україні ми мали 300 тисяч квадратних кілометрів небезпечної для життя території. Сьогодні, завдяки справжньому героїзму українських саперів і піротехніків, наших рятувальників і усіх, хто їм допомагає, площу забрудненою мінами і боєприпасами землі вдалося скоротити. Тепер залишилось для розмінування близько 170 тисяч квадратних кілометрів. Зокрема, це і у найскладніших місцях. Там, де бойові дії ще тривають, там, де ворог ще додасть замінувань перед своїм відходом. Як це зараз у Херсоні. Плюс ліси, плюс величезна площа полів. Я вдячний нашим партнерам, які вже реалізують проекти допомоги в розмінуванні. Це США, Канада, Велика Британія, а також Данія, Норвегія, Естонія, Австрія, Польща, Японія, Швейцарія, Швеція, Словаччина, структури ООН. Свій особистий внесок може зробити і будь-яка людина на землі, усі, хто підтримує Україну через нашу благодійну платформу United24. Зокрема, завдяки такій допомозі вже придбали першу найбільш ефективну машину для розмінування Armtrack 400, яка зараз працює на Харківщині. Вона за годину проходить 1,5 гектари, повністю гарантуючи знешкодження мін. І передусім очищує територію вздовж ліній електропередач, щоб могли працювати енергетики і відновлювати постачання. Будемо додавати ще таку і іншу подібну техніку і пришвидшувати розмінування всюди, куди ми повертаємо наш прапор, наше нормальне українське життя. У звільнені райони одразу за воїнами йдуть і сили Національної поліції. Сьогодні поліція зайшла в Калинівське, Бобровий Кут, Євгенівку, Коцюбинське та Снігурівку. Там розпочали стабілізаційні заходи. Провів сьогодні 2 важливі телефонні розмови. З прем'єр-міністром Британії обговорили подальшу оборонну підтримку нашої держави, обмінялися оцінками триваючих операцій на передовій. Готуємось до важливих міжнародних подій наступного тижня, зокрема до саміту «двадцятки». Координуємо позиції з партнерами. З прем'єр-міністром Канади також обговорили G20, наші ініціативи в ООН. Маємо важливі проекти резолюцій, які пропонуємо підтримати Генеральній асамблеї. Окремо пройшлися по тим лініям оборонної і безпекової взаємодії, які вже є з Канадою. Плануємо розширювати співпрацю. Завтра у графіку ще є важливі переговори. Хочу сьогодні також подякувати Нідерландам за черговий крок на посилення нашої оборони. 100 мільйонів євро спрямовуються у фонд підтримки нашого захисту. Ці кошти, а також кошти від інших партнерів будуть використані для закупівлі техніки безпосередньо у виробників і працюватимуть на перспективу. На те, щоб Україна ставала тільки міцніше. Ну і ще одне. Сьогодні маємо оголошення нового пакету військової допомоги від Сполучених Штатів Америки. Важливі засоби протиповітряної оборони. Якраз те, що треба, те, що ми просили. Слава усім, хто воює і працює заради нашої держави і нашим людям. Дякую усім, хто допомагає. Вічна слава усім, хто віддає життя за Україну і хто своє життя віддав. Слава Україні!
And with that, That is the end of the speech from President Zelenskyy here on this monumentous day of day 261, and I thank you all so much once again for watching. If you did enjoy tonight's stream, all the news, the speech, and all of our commentary as well, which always comes packaged with every single stream, please make sure to subscribe to this channel and also hit the like button on this stream. We've gotten up to 3,211 likes tonight, and I wonder if we can get more likes. More likes helps this stream to be pushed to more people, because it tells YouTube that people are really enjoying the news that we're covering and that more people should hear about it. And of course, I thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been a great night, and of course, starting to lose my way of words that I used to have earlier on when I used to run these streams, because nowadays it's just unbelievable to think that we've gotten this far and such crazy things like we're seeing today is happening. But it's been an absolute pleasure to cover it with y'all, and it's now time to get into our remaining polls and questions. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and it is now time for our final question segment of the night, and we have 2 polls to address up first. And the first one says, would you ride the combat Segway into battle? It looks like 45% said no, Segway is not for war. 39% said yes, it's a no-brainer. And 16% said maybe, but does it work well? Now, I'm not riding a Segway into battle, I'm sorry. A Segway is not made for war. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would ride the Segway. I would.
Into battle, though?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like, hell, if it killed the guy who invented it, imagine what it would do to the Russians. I mean, like, you know, you could really body someone with one of those things. Of course, I'm just kidding. It wouldn't work. So I would say I would have to agree with the majority of y'all and say no. But just imagine people riding into battle in a Segway. How silly would that really look? But with that, we're on to the next one.
Right. And the next poll said, do you agree that the Ukrainian Novator light vehicle is top-tier design? It looks like 69% said yes, it is very well designed. 27% said maybe, it looks nice. And 4% said no, it's average design. Now, I have to say, like we said earlier, the Novator is a very, very top-tier design in my opinion. It looks like something that would have come from one of the multi-billion-dollar companies in America. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree with that statement entirely. It's a classic design, or not classic. It's an innovative design that will become a classic, and I love it. I think it was a great one. And so with that, I hope I addressed that poll fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and that was the last poll, so we are now moving on to our Super Chat questions. And as always, as we go through our questions, I will be putting up some breaking news occasionally. I'm going to start doing that as a habit throughout the question segment because it looks like everybody likes that a lot. So up first from the Super Chats, we have a very generous $200 donation from none other than Walter A. Lakota Jr., who says, Aloha, Enforcer, Enforcer Matt, and LSA from OG Ellison Bosun. It seems a lot is happening in Kherson to probably prevent the regular RUA from being moved to other positions in the eastern Donbass to give Ukraine forces there a chance to keep pressure on other factions in the Donbass.
And thank you so much for the mass amount of support, Walter. This is the third night that you supported us massively, and I'm just, at this point, I'm wondering, like it blows me away that people send in this kind of support. I'm wondering how. I mean, like, it's blown me away, but I thank you so much once again for the support, Walter. And to answer that question or that comment, I would agree with that entirely. Usually, I gotta be honest, Walter hits it on the nail almost every single time he throws in his thoughts and ideas. I would entirely agree. The reason why the Ukrainians are moving at such a fast speed, and it looks like they're going straight for the bridge, is that they're trying to stop the Russians from crossing and maybe capture almost all of the Russian soldiers that are on that side of the river now. If they were able to do that, then that means the condition and the situation along the rest of the front lines has drastically improved as compared to what it would be if they were able to cross. And that is something that is very important, and I think that may be why the Ukrainians are taking the risk of blowing some forces straight through their lines at the fastest speed possible and towards that bridge, so that way the Russians can not regroup on the other side and send more forces elsewhere. If they want more forces, they're going to have to call up a complete mobilization, which will completely throw the war on its head. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Walter. I don't know how you've been supporting us this much over the past 3 days, but the support is greatly appreciated and helps this channel to keep on rolling. If it wasn't for viewers like you who supported us like that, we wouldn't be able to keep the lights on behind the scenes and keep this thing rolling. And so thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope we were able to address that comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we have a $120 super chat from none other than Mark, Slava Ukraine, who is also a longtime channel legend, who says, I think the distance advanced by Ukraine is 30 kilometers to the Dnipro River, so the issue is less about overextending and more about headfirst into an ambush, maybe.
And let's see here. Let me find that one real quick so that way I can read it. Let's see. Which one was that again, Matthew? Because I'm looking through them.
It's the 137 Canadian from Mark.
For some reason I thought it wasn't Mark, so I actually skipped over it. It's like, yeah, it's not Mark. But thank you so much for the support, Mark. Also, welcome back to the stream. It's been a while since I've seen you in here, but you're back, and so welcome back, and thank you so much once again for the support. Now, to answer that question or the statement, 30 kilometers is incredibly short for Ukrainian advance. We've seen them move so fast that they could probably cover that in a day. So I would say that would be the biggest concern. The logistics side of things is not a concern for Ukraine at all because they operate off of truck-based logistics already, and they have it worked down to a fine-oiled sewing machine. So that isn't really a concern, but going headlong into an ambush would be. I don't think that they will. Matthew thinks that they may. It seems like most of our viewers think that they won't either, and that they should continue on with this massive spearhead advance straight through Kherson. But that could be a major risk that they're running into, and hopefully the Ukrainians keep on their toes just in case if that is the case, they can react to it quickly and mitigate the effects of it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Mark. I don't know where you've been, but it's great to have you back. And of course, I thank you so much, along with everyone else, for supporting this channel and helping us to keep on running. You are one of the reasons that we're able to keep doing this, and I just got to thank all of y'all so much once again. The support tonight has been it's been unbelievable, and I thank you all so much for helping us to keep this thing rolling. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and moving right along, up next we have a very generous $100 donation from William Hamill, who says, do you think the Kremlin wants a lot of retreating Russians to die so they can demonize the Ukrainians?
I don't think so, because if anything was done by the Russians that killed more Russians, like blowing up the dam, for example, really the only people that could be blamed on was the Russians, because of course, why would the Ukrainian, because, then again, could be wrong. Russian people seem to be a little bit lacking sometimes in terms of critical thinking, but if the dam was blown up and the Ukrainians are advancing into the area that would be flooded, why would that make sense? It would seem that the Russians would have blown that up. And so, with that being the case, it would be very hard for the Russians to spin that story, and also it would be expected from the Russian public that the Russian government would do something to save those thousands of soldiers, and they wouldn't be able to at that point due to the massive floodplain that would be created. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well, William. Are you related to Mark Hamill? Matthew's not really adding in a lot. You know who Mark Hamill is, Matthew?
Is the guy off of Star Wars?
Yeah, he's the guy who did Luke Skywalker. He's also one of the ambassadors for United 24 right now. And I wonder if William Hamill is related to Mark Hamill. And he said yes. Really?
Wait, for real?
Really? For real? Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill has, let's see, his siblings, Jeannie Hamill, Patrick Hamill, Will Hamill. Will Hamill. Is this for real? That's cool if it is. That's really cool. I'm actually pretty interested in that. I'm really interested in wondering if that is true or if you're just pulling our chain. Because if you're pulling our chain, that's a pretty good one because you got me there. And if you're not, that's pretty crazy. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, William Hamill. I hope we were able to address that question fairly well. And if you are a relative of Mark Hamill. That's crazy. And so that we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
All right. And real quick, just to mention it, because I saw Phil Lee say in the live chat, please mention that today is Remembrance Day for most of the world and also Veterans Day in the US. And Phil is correct. November 11th is Veterans Day. So to all the veterans in the chat, thank you very much for your service. And Enforcer, would you like to add something to that?
Yes, I would. We are about to, well, for some of y'all in some parts of the United States, I believe it is already the 11th of November, which I have to say, while it's called Veterans Day today, I still think of it as Armistice Day. And to give y'all a little bit of a story, you know, because everything's got to have a story, Armistice Day was started in the United States because of World War I. On the 11th day of November, you know, of course, everyone's heard this, of the 11th month, of the 11th day, of the 11th hour, of the 11th minute, and it wasn't a minute, it was just the hour, the guns on the Western Front fell silent, and the First World War came to a close. With it, 17 million soldiers had been killed. And a lot of these men lived in perilous, dangerous conditions of which don't make the Ukraine war, even in its worst parts of the front lines like the siege of Mariupol, look like child's play. The kind of suffering that the soldiers of the First World War went through was so horrendous that it would change the Western world forever. And because of that, many nations that were, of course, on the Allied side of the First World War would commemorate the 11th of November each and every year with an Armistice Day. In the United States, it was later changed to Veterans Day, which is what we call it now. But around most of the world, in Commonwealth countries in the United Kingdom, it is still called by its original name, Remembrance Day. And so, of course, I hope that we honor the soldiers of the First World War. Of course, that is my favorite historical era. I believe it was one of the most important ones of the modern world. And I thank all of the veterans since the First World War and before who have also served for all of the countries around the world in both the Western sphere and beyond, like the British, the French, the Germans, the Americans, who have continued on, well, the Germans, you know, of course, that they come into the picture after, I guess you could say, the 40s. Before that, they were kind of the reason why we're having the holiday. But I hope that all of them, I thank them all so much for their service, and I thank them for continuing to be the might and the strong arm that helps this free world to remain free. And so with that, thank you to all of the veterans who are here watching this stream. About 25% of y'all, 1 in every 4 of y'all, are a veteran that previously served in the armed forces, and to each and every one of y'all, thank you so much once again. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $100 super chat from Mr. Bert and Ernie, who says, "Hey, Enforcer, no question, but take one from the chat. I'm elated as Ukraine approaches Kherson, as I have been there many times. Dang near moved there in 2003, and Slava Ukraine."
And thank you so much, Mr. Boyd, for your support. But of course, I thank you so much for enjoying this channel and supporting us to keep it running. It means a lot to us, and of course, without your support, it wouldn't be possible for this thing to keep going. And so and I would have to agree with you. In moving on to the next part, I am completely floored that they're moving this quickly. I didn't expect it. I actually thought it would be 2 weeks' time, and for one of the few times ever, and keep this down as a strike in the books. For one of the first times ever, I was wrong. I actually completely underestimated the speed at which Ukrainian forces would move. They're moving a lot quicker than I even thought they would move, and I thought my timetable was incredibly optimistic. And so I'm more than ecstatic. I'm elated. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. Also, crazy to hear that you were about to move to Ukraine in 2003. But let's get a question from the live chat in honor of Mr. Bert and Ernie.
Right. And in honor of Mr. Bert and Ernie, the live chat question goes to Jim B., who says, "Who is the biggest threat to Putin's regime, the regular army or the security services?"
Now, I saw that question earlier, and I thought it was really good, and I'm glad you clipped that one out of the live chat to ask later. I would have to say that it would be the security services that are more dangerous to Putin than the army. Historically, the security services are more centralized to Moscow than the military. If you look at the power struggle that happened after the death of Stalin, and really during any time that a premier was being chosen for the Soviet Union, it was always the internal, I guess you could say, services like the KGB, the NKVD, and the Cheka that were very important in making sure that these new leaders would step into their positions. I guess if you could relate them to anything historically, the KGB, now the FSB, holds about the same position and authority in the Russian Federation that the Praetorian Guard would have held in ancient Rome. They are the ones who kind of do a little bit of the power playing behind the scenes and help to install certain leaders. And so with that in mind, I would have to say that it would be the internal services that would pose a much larger threat to Putin than the military would. Although the internal services usually get a little bit of support from the military, or they're completely at odds with them. It just depends on who's coming in power at that point. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that, also, one second. I hope that addresses the live chat fairly well. And thank you so much once again, Mr. Burt and Ernie, for the support. And I hope we were able to answer that live chat fairly well. Also, just in case, and this is something that a lot of people don't do in the United States, but a lot of people do it worldwide, many of our British viewers and viewers from Commonwealth nations may know of the poppy flower on Remembrance Day. And to explain a little bit of this, because this may be completely foreign to American viewers, because we're not really big into poppies, the poppy is the symbol of Remembrance Day. When you pull it up here, every single picture that has that's about Remembrance Day has a poppy in it. The poppy is the flower of the First World War, pretty much. It comes from the poem "The Bloody Fields of Flanders." You know, where the poppies grow, and you know they grow in like in rows, like graves, and that sort of stuff. And we don't really wear poppies in the United States, but I wish that it started to become a symbol of Veterans Day and Armistice Day here in the United States. It used to be, but it started to fall out of favor, I believe, earlier on, just a couple of decades after the holiday's creation. But I believe it's a great symbol of the First World War and also Armistice Day as a whole. And the flower itself kind of has symbolized, especially in Commonwealth and British countries, the entire war just in a single flower and where it grew, which was in the fields of Flanders. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And I thank you so much for bringing that up.
And also, I have to give it a shout out because so many people have mentioned it. I saw Joe Demet say in the live chat, please don't forget that the Marine Corps' birthday is November the 10th, 247 years of the Corps. So, Semper Fi.
Marine Corps birthday. Well, he's right. He is right. In 1775, the Continental Congress would form the Marine Corps, and they started off with quite a bang. The Marines also have, I would say, the snazziest dress uniform of any of the branches. Let's go look, because we always got to give the Marine Corps credit. If anyone is carrying the entire drip of the armed forces in the United States, it is the Marine Corps. That is a uniform right there. That is a good one, too. But honestly,
that is quite nice. It's very sharp compared to the other ones.
Honestly, I would have to say, though, the white pants are nice, but I like the blue ones better with the red stripe. And if I remember the story correctly, and I'm sure that we have a lot of Marine Corps veterans watching this stream, if I'm correct, this blood red stripe on the pants comes from the Battle of San Jacinto in the Spanish-American War, if I'm correct. But I may have heard that story incorrectly. But still, it's a great uniform. I love the uniform of the Marine Corps, and I think that's probably one of its greatest recruitment tools is how good that uniform looks. But with that, we are on to the next one, and happy birthday to the Corps.
All right, and up next, we have another $100 super chat from Hal Rose, who does not leave a comment once again. But Hal, thank you very much for the second very large, generous donation of the night, and Enforcer would like to add a few words himself.
He didn't leave a comment again. He didn't leave it. And I thank you so much for the support, Hal, but it blows my mind when I can't really respond to anything from a super chat, because I thank you for the support and it helps this channel to keep running, but I feel like I owe you something more than just the stream for your support. And so if you want to throw in a comment, throw one in. We'll make sure to respond to it. But thank you so much once again for the support in helping this channel to keep running. And I've got to say, not throwing in a comment and just throwing in support is incredibly generous of you, because you're asking for really nothing from us in return that we wouldn't have already been doing covering the news. And it blows me away when people do that. But I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep alive. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for being incredibly generous to us and helping us to keep this thing going. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $50 super chat from Gary Robbins, the channel legend. And Gary doesn't leave a comment either, but thank you very much for that support, Gary.
Gary, Gary, what in the world is going on around here? But thank you so much for the support, Gary. Your support helps this channel to keep on running, and you have been around for an incredibly long time. And so I thank you so much for helping us to keep this thing going. And there's just not a lot. I hate when they don't have comments, man, because there's just nothing for me to add on. But thank you once again for the support. It does help us to keep running. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And also, Pat the Horse is trying to get in a pissing contest with the U.S. Marine Corps because he said 1664 was the foundation of the Royal Marines, which is true. And I'd honestly say the Royal Marines dress uniform, let me find it. Well, not the actual dress uniform. I guess you could say the Royal Marines band dress uniform is similar in a way. But the Royal...
No, I'll take the United States Marine uniform over that one any day.
It's close, though. It is somewhat close.
Somewhat. It's missing the like sharpness of the other one, though.
Oh yeah, here's the one I'm talking about for the Royal Marines band with the pith.
Yeah,
I like it. I like it. I think it looks good. But still, pretty neat uniform all around. I like it. Matthew might not, but you know, everyone can have their own opinion. I still like it though. But I would still pick the Marine Corps uniform, the U.S. Marine uniform, any day because I just think it looks better. Wait
a minute, is that rank upside down?
No, that's the proper direction for a sergeant in the British Army. It's upside down.
Huh. That threw me for a loop.
Do you really think that this man in an honor guard in the 70s would have his uniform his rank on his uniform upside down, sir?
I'm seeing things for a minute. That's different.
Preposterous. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $50 super chat from Magic Sky Girl, the channel legend as well, who says, Slava Ukraine enforcers, I have a real question tonight. Do you think the Ukraine can get to the dam and demine it before Russia blows it up?
I'm not really sure if the Russians even have it mined. That's kind of a big question right now because the Ukrainians haven't made it there and it hasn't blown up. But if it is mined, I think at the speed they're moving at, they could also make it to that dam as well and probably capture one end of it or get there in time to probably thwart a plan that would revolve around that. But I'm not entirely sure because that idea entirely relies on the idea that's already been mined, and that is something we don't really know for certain, and we don't really know if that is a plan of the Russians. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well, Magic Sky Girl, and also thank you so much for being a longtime member of the Leaf Spring Army. You've been watching this channel forever, and thank you so much once again for supporting this channel, so that way we can cover news like we got today. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $30 super chat from Phil Tatham, our viewer from the UK, who says, Hello, gentlemen. Hope you're both very well. Please ask a question from the ranks of LSA.
And thank you so much for the support, Phil, one of our favorite British viewers. Of course, I love all of my viewers, but it's always cool to hear from the British viewers because... really, it's cool to hear from any international viewers, especially through Super Chats, because it shows up as like pounds or euros, and that just looks cool, because it's different. But still, thank you so much for the support, Phil. And to answer that question about answering a live chat, no, I'm just kidding. We will answer one. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
Right, so we have a question from R. Herrera, who says, do you think Ukraine is getting tactical strategy from NATO?
Oh, certainly. They're getting loads of help in the background like that from the United States. Of course, the Western doctrine that the Ukrainians are using right now was largely fostered under the previous administration in the United States just years ago, and that helped them out a massive bound. And right now, they are currently getting strategic help, I guess you could say wargaming ideas from the United States that is probably helping them to succeed on the battlefield like they are right now. And one thing I would like to point out, because this is something, and of course now that the midterms have passed, it's not really a question or a fear anymore that people are asking about, but the support for Ukraine has been practically continuous ever since the start. In 2014, we condemned what the Russians were doing, and since then, we've always supported Ukraine, and I think that's a great thing to know is that regardless of what would have ever happened in the midterms, the support would have continued for Ukraine. And it was also great to see that when the exit polls came out, and I thought this was incredibly telling because, of course, and you know, I think we can say the name freely because it's not like it's an unknown thing. There is we won't say the name, but there's a certain reporter on Fox News that makes it seem, because of course he has a big platform and, you know, he outrages people whenever he says stuff about it, that a lot of people in America do not support Ukraine. But then the exit polls came out, and combined across all of the areas that voted that day, 77% of the U.S. public supported U.S. support continuing to go into Ukraine. And I thought that was incredibly telling. It's good to know that that many people still support Ukraine, and also it's good to hear that we as a nation are incredibly committed to the cause, all the way down to the level of a private citizen, and continuing the support. And for that reason, I completely believe that at the very top, probably getting information directly from the Pentagon on how to carry out this war is helping the Ukrainians to succeed. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support, Magic Sky Girl.
And up next, we have a $21 super chat from BL Parak, who says, I would, wait a minute, let me see if I can get this right in my head. I would ride my aerial rider Grizzly into battle, dual motor electric planetary gear drive, all-wheel drive, fun bike.
And what is that thing called?
It's called an aerial rider Grizzly.
Aerial rider Grizzly. You're a brave man. Braver than
That's like
most.
one of those city bikes, isn't it?
Yeah. City boy, city boy.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, but I thank you so much for the support. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm saying this, but this is honestly based in history. I wouldn't ride a bicycle into battle these days, but there used to be a lot of bicycle battalions in the Second World War in almost every single military around the world. Even the U.S. had bicycle battalions. So it's tactically, it's not unheard of, but in the modern world, we don't really.
Though the people in Detroit ride the bicycle into battle every day.
Oh, God bless the folks in Detroit, man. I mean, like if anywhere is close to being Mosul in the United States, it's Detroit. That place turned into a battlefield terribly. I just feel sorry for it. Downtown Detroit isn't that bad, but once you get into the suburbs out here, it's abandoned practically. The whole city may as well be dead. I believe it's only a third the size it used to be, or something similar to that, but man, yeah, I mean, like it's pretty rough in Detroit. And so with that, we're going to be moving on to the next one, but I thank you so much for the support. I wouldn't ride that thing into battle, but it's not unheard of to use bicycles in war. So with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
You're right. And next up, we have a $40 super chat from Matthew Jones, who says, here in Australia, it's Remembrance Day. So thinking of all the past and present servicemen who defend all of our freedoms and in Ukraine today continue to defend their nation.
And I thank you so much for the support as well, Matthew. Because and that was crazy. That threw me for a loop because you said Matthew through the support. So thank you so much, Matthew, for helping this channel to keep on running. I mean,
no problem.
You've been moderating this channel. I'm just kidding. I thank you so much, Matthew James, to correct the Matthew we're talking about, for supporting this channel. And that is true. It's also Remembrance Day in Australia, and Remembrance Day holds a special tone in Australia and New Zealand because their Remembrance Day, much like everyone's, was based off of the First World War, and the Anzacs in general, both of them, really got the short end of the stick when a decent amount of their soldiers were sent to Gallipoli and died on the beaches there and really gained nothing. It's a really sad story, believe it or not, Matthew. The guy who came up with the idea of the Battle of Gallipoli was none other than Winston Churchill.
Really?
Yes, and it went so poorly that he actually resigned his position as Lord of the Admiralty after this massive failure at Gallipoli and ended up becoming a field officer in the British Army and actually fought in the trenches.
Interesting.
Yeah, so he's a bit of a guy. Also, he ended up leading the Landship Committee afterwards, which would invent the first tank. So Winston Churchill's quite the guy with quite the story, but that was probably one of the worst parts of his story. It would haunt him for the rest of his life, even when he was running for prime minister. Well, when he was not, when you say running for prime minister, it doesn't have the same connotations as running for president of the U.S., but when he was being vied for as prime minister in the Conservative Party back in the 30s, it was harrowed over his head that he was the guy who did Gallipoli, and it was still a massive stain on his reputation almost 20 years later, and rightfully so. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives in the Battle of Gallipoli. Most of them were Anzacs, and so that. I thank you so much, Matthew James, for telling us that, because Australia and New Zealand contributed a massive amount of manpower and especially lives and souls to the Battle of Gallipoli in the First World War, and deserve a whole load of respect and admiration for sticking through the First World War and the Second, and ended up being an invaluable ally during the Second World War in the Pacific theater. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support, Matthew James, and also giving a little bit of credit to the Australian veterans of wars from World War I since.
Yes, indeed. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Jose Diaz, who says, greetings from Arecibo, Puerto Rico. Today is the 247th United States Marine Corps birthday. As a former U.S. Marine, happy birthday to all my fellow Marines. Freedom for Ukraine, and God bless America.
And thank you so much for the support once again, and also happy birthday to the Marine Corps again. The Marine Corps was born today in 1775. Impressive to think that it's been around for so long, and it's gotten quite a distinguished history over that time. Not only that, but I gotta say, the Marine Corps gets a bad rap in some ways, but I think honestly, a decent amount of branches in the U.S. Well, I think all branches in the U.S. military are kind of jealous in a way of the esprit de corps that is in the Marine Corps. You can know Marines from a mile away because they'll let you know they're a Marine. They're proud to have served as one. And so I've got to tell you all once again, to all of our Marines watching, happy birthday to the Marine Corps. Happy birthday to all of y'all. And it's good to know that y'all still, even after being out of the Marine Corps, revere it with so much respect that y'all would celebrate its birthday still. And so with that, thank you so much once again. Happy birthday to the Corps for the 5th time. But still, it is the birthday of the Corps, and that is a big deal. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And while I don't say this a lot, simplify. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Avari Mandubratis, who says, Russia is trying to use Robert the Bruce's 1314 Bannockburn strategy in Kherson City, but the Ukrainians aren't as arrogant as Edward II's army. Ukraine's special forces are apparently in the city, defeating traps. It's time for M30-A1 rain.
And thank you so much for the support once again, Avari. And to answer that comment, I would honestly have to tell you I'm quite ignorant about medieval history, especially about Robert the Bruce. Or anyone around that time. So unfortunately, I don't know the exact reference you're talking about. I know that comes as a shock because many people always know me as a walking encyclopedia that knows all kinds of historical facts and information. But one thing I don't know about a lot is a decent amount of stuff in the Middle Ages. I can tell you about some of the larger stuff, but the smaller stuff like that, it eludes me. But still, I would say the Russians are probably trying to set up traps near Kherson, but based on the speed that the Ukrainians moved into Chernobivka today and took that over, and Chernobivka is a considerable size, and they've already moved somewhere down into Kherson itself, it's showing that they're not really setting up enough traps to really stop them, and so they might make it to the bridge. And if they do that, I'm going to flip. I'm literally going to get up out of my chair and flip. I'll probably fail and break my neck, but it'll be worth it because it will be unbelievable to see that. But I thank you so much once again for the support, Vari. And it is good to hear, although we don't have confirmation of it, that there is apparently Ukrainian special forces in Kherson already that are helping to continue to the advance at the breakneck speed it's moving at. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
Right. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from SuperBunker9000, the NAFO member, who says, my dog approves the enforcer for president in 2038. Chat question, please.
And thank you so much for the support for my vote for president in 2040. I've got to say, I can't wait for it. Hopefully, I can run and become a pretty good president. Of course, one thing that is always a little bit of a thing that it leaves me with a little bit of apprehension is that America is divided heavily these days politically. So if you, and this is why we keep politically neutral on this channel, if you jump from one side to the other, you kind of land in a camp, whichever camp it is, you land in it and you're stuck in it. And I don't really like that. But still, I guess that's what you have to deal with in America. It's either one or the other. So I'll have to pick one eventually. But hopefully, regardless of whatever I pick, hopefully y'all find me to be a very competent person that y'all believe can be counted on to make the right decisions at the right time. And hopefully will vote for me regardless of political affiliation. Because I feel, in my opinion, it's far more important to believe in the competence of a person than it is the policies. Because if I don't know if y'all see this, but not a lot policy-wise happens in the United States. It's more so, and also really, I guess you could say, campaign policies are rarely ever stick to as well. It's mostly about believing in the competence of the leader that has been elected, more so instead of what they're telling you they'll do, because they rarely ever do it. And usually they're kind of stuck in a position where they really can't do the stuff they want to do, because what they wanted to do was based off of what was happening in 2020. Then they come into office in 2021, and the situation's entirely different. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for supporting me for president in 2040. And I hope a lot of y'all do as well. Also, Maple Lee Spring said, go independent. I to be honest with you, I would. But then
they can't win.
You can't win because everyone's so stuck into their parties, and that's once again a part of the problem. Everyone's so stuck into their parties that you could be an exemplary independent candidate that would be perfect for the role, and you won't get elected because everyone's just into this party worship stuff. And I'm not really into party worship. That's also why I'm very confident in going, we don't take political sides. I won't ever do it because I can't ever see myself just worshiping a political party. It's just not my thing. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Compound David, and we haven't seen him in quite some time. So, David, welcome back. He says, I think it will be the Excalibur and HIMARS time on the way to Crimea for the next few months. I will celebrate with some Kopi Luwak coffee.
And thank you so much for the support. Honestly, I was hoping it would be copium coffee. I think that would be hilarious. But
yes, that cat doo-doo coffee.
Yeah. I hate that stuff, man. Like, it's just gross to think about. But if you like it, you like it. I thank you so much once again for the support in helping this channel to keep on running. And I do think that the Ukrainians are reaching unlimited success due to the impressive abilities of their artillery, like the HIMARS and the Excalibur rounds. It really helps out a lot. And you can't really measure the amount of success that is helping to achieve. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I entirely agree with you. And I can't wait to see the Ukrainians entering Crimea in the future. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and moving on to our next one, we have a $20 super chat from Panama Floyd, who does not leave a comment. But Panama, thank you very much for your support, and thank you very much for being around for a very long time as well. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much for the support. Like Matthew said, you have been around forever. And I thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. And while you didn't throw in a comment, we, of course, appreciate you so much for the support because it helps this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But before we move on, some people are talking about, and this is something I have to say here. Allow me to talk on this real quick from a philosophical perspective. A lot of people say, and it's the common belief in the United States, that a third party can never survive. America was made for a two-party system. I beg to differ. I think a three-party system can survive. It would have to survive similar to a parliament, however, because think about, let's just say this. Let's say this independent party comes in. It's a third party. It wouldn't be independent anymore. It would become a third party of its own. And it eats equally at the Republicans and the Democrats. That means that these independents, not really being affiliated with a party, let's remove the party idea again and just say that each one is an independent representing the interests of their district in either the House or the Senate, they will then, well, these larger parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, will then have to create coalitions individually with these individual independents to try and get their legislation passed, meaning that these independent representatives will have a lot of sway power. And that's something you don't see in Congress a lot anymore. It's become deadlocked because even the representatives have gotten so ingrained in party line ideals that there are very few people who vote off party lines anymore. But if you had a mass amount of independents, a third party could survive, or independents could survive alone. And these larger parties could create coalitions based off of them. And I think off of that, I guess you could say, democracy would be a lot healthier because it would allow for legislations to be passed that should be passed based off of what the public would want, and it would also allow for things to be blocked that need to be blocked. I guess you could say that would be in the interest of the public. So,
Forrester, here's a question for you. Do you know why third parties typically run in the United States?
third parties usually run to split the ticket of another party.
Yes, they're typically recruited by whichever party wants to steal votes from the other one that they know they have to steal to win. And I say steal, that's kind of a strong word. That they kind of take the votes from that party. They don't really steal them.
Yeah.
But that's typically why they're done.
Yeah, and you
because they don't stand a chance in hell of winning.
And you can kind of see that clearly when Teddy Roosevelt created the Bull Moose Party and split the Republican ticket in half, leading to Woodrow Wilson becoming the president. That clearly shows that kind of impact happening. But I still think that independence could create a very interesting dynamic in the government that we don't see. I honestly believe in the idea of George Washington, where he said that there shouldn't be political parties. I believe that there shouldn't be. And of course, you can't change that now. It is what it is. But I believe that every single district in the United States, the interests of Alabama and the interests of the federal districts that make up Alabama, where these representatives come from, are going to be completely different than a Texan. And although they could be under a same ideological umbrella, they're different. And these representatives need to vote on the best interests of their district instead of the best interests of the party, because the party isn't always going to benefit everyone that votes for them. But still, that's going down a whole massive rabbit hole. You can't change the way the system works now. It is what it is, and you just have to work with it. But with that, we are on to the next one.
Right, and up next, we have yet another super chat from Walter A. Lakota Jr., who puts in another $100 donation. He says, LSA, it's me again. Fun fact, my grandma, Lakota, was Ukrainian and Georgian and ran the Russian Underground Railroad in the 1920s to 1930s. Also, both of my grandparents, Lakota, came over in 1910 on the Kaplia ship. Lakota is also Likota in Old Slavic language.
And thank you so much for the support, Walter. And that is really cool to hear. That's actually really cool. The Underground Railroad. I'm supposing, I haven't heard about this much. I'm supposing that it most likely would have been helping out a lot of ethnic Jews to escape the pogroms of the 30s, because those started to become serious, especially when Stalin took charge. But that is crazy to hear. You've really got an interesting connection to Ukraine. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support, and also sharing that really cool story with us. And also, let's pull up the Kaplia ship. Kaplia ship. Also, thanks a lot. I've never understood how they got the ships underground as well. I've never really gotten that. But let's see here. Let's see, it says Kaplia with 2 P's. So we did pull that up correctly. Let's see if we can find a picture of it. Picture. It's an older picture because they were in the 30s. The Capella cargo ship. Yeah, that can't be it. Let's see. Dagnabbit. I can't find it. I can't find it on Google Images, at least. I'm sure it's out there, but I sadly can't find a picture of it. Maybe this one. Maybe. It's a sailing ship, though. Usually it would have been steam-powered at that point, but maybe that's the case. Regardless, a really cool story, and I thank you so much once again, Walter, for helping us keep this channel running, and also sharing such an interesting story with us. And with that, we are on to the next one, and I gotta say, that is just really cool. I didn't know you had that kind of connection with Ukraine.
Yes, indeed. And thank you very much for that support once more. And moving on, up next, we have a $20 super chat from Santiago Flores, who says, I would like to donate to the washing machine rescue and recovery team. All washing machines will be accounted for. And great work, guys. Great news.
And thank you so much for enjoying the news. And I think that the Ukrainians should make a massive concerted effort to find all the washing machines and return them to their owners. You know that thousands of those things, in all seriousness, have been stolen, maybe even tens of thousands of them, and they need to be returned any way possible if they can be found. And so with that, thank you so much for the support, and also a pretty funny joke. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again. Also, Matthew, how many super chats do we have left?
We have about 37 left.
Wow, we actually got a lot of them. I thought we had a smaller amount tonight. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from News at 11, who says the Ukrainians should use U.S. intel to push forward at all speed, go over the river, and attack the artillery setup over there, and the Russians are trapped.
Ooh, that is bold. I would have to say, I think in my opinion, I can be wrong, that would be a little too bold for me. I believe that would lead to a high amount of casualties if the Ukrainians try to cross the river, and so I wouldn't suggest that. They could probably counter battery that artillery quite effectively and destroy it with a HIMARS instead of having to send soldiers over there and put them in a great deal of peril. But that could be a way to help certainly fix the problem with the Russians on the northern bank, but I still believe it would be a little too dangerous. But with that, thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Toady Beck, who says, hey, Enforcers, thanks for your great work. Quick thought. What do you think about Ukraine teaming up with Moldova to clear out the orcs from Transnistria? It's under military occupation and part of Moldova. It's a 100% legit target.
Thank you so much for the support, Tony. Also, Tony, have you been driving safely lately? Haven't been.
That's Toady.
Oh,
Toady.
I swore you said Tony.
It is Toady.
Interesting. But anyways, I would have to say, I think that would be something Ukrainians could do, but would they want to get involved in it? It would incur some casualties. It would fix the Transnistrian problem in Moldova, so I would see it as a benefit for the Moldovans. And in that regard, I would say yes, but in others, I would say no, because it would incur the loss of more Ukrainian lives for something that the Moldovans could probably fix on their own, especially considering the situation of the Russians after the war. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and thank you so much once again for the support, Toady. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving right along, we have a $20 super chat from Chip Kerwan, who says, will Russia blow the dam? And A, maybe, or B, absolutely. If destroying the dam, what earliest point after what operational critical path conditions present?
And I thank you for the support, Chip. And to answer that question, I believe that the Russians will most likely not blow up the dam. If they do, can you reread that last part, Matthew? Because I believe I'm missing the question there.
He said, if destroying dam, what earliest point after what operational critical path conditions present?
I don't really think I understand that part of the question. I'll try and answer it the best I can. The floodwaters will most likely be at their highest hours after the dam is ruptured, but they'll recede soon afterwards. So I would have to say it would most likely be about a day's worth of effect, and then afterwards it would be done with. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support, Chip, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $16 super chat from BL Parak, who says Ukraine's Delfast e-bikes are used in battle today in this war.
And thank you for the support, BL Parak, and you are correct. They are used in the war, but I don't know if they're being used in mass for bicycle units. So I mean, like, it is used in the war, so, I mean, like, he wouldn't be wrong using his electric bike in the war as well, but I just, you know, like, at one mind, in my historical mind, I'm like, it's a normal doctrine, it was used a lot in history, it's usable. In the other, I'm like, it's a modern war, there's artillery, you know, very precise artillery, even by Cold War Russian standards right now, it's fairly precise, and you're putting bikes up against it, and I'm like, yeah, you know, it's like, it's a tough call, but still, you are correct. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, BL Proc. And real quick, Matthew, I'm actually going to be going out of order here to address a statement from Walter A. Lakota. He sent in a $5 super chat and said Capella was the ship that rescued the Titanic survivors in 1912. And now I know the one you're talking about. You're talking about the Carpathia, which was this one. And the Carpathia is actually a pretty cool ship. It also looks really neat as well. This would be the ship that came to the rescue of the survivors of the Titanic in the icy waters of April 14th or 15th in 1912. Really interesting. Also, the amenities on it were not that good, especially compared to the Titanic. Also, sadly, its fate was sealed in 1915. No, I'm sorry. Wait a minute, I'm reading this wrong. 1918, after it was sank by a German U-boat, and you can actually see a picture taken from the deck of that U-boat as the Carpathia sank in the distance, which is really crazy to think that they were taking pictures from a submarine in World War I, but that is the case. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Walter. I hope that does address that fairly well, and I think it does look a lot like Carpella. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for support. And that is really cool to think that they were on such a historical ship. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have another super chat from Hal Rose. This time it's another $100 donation. Hal is being extremely generous tonight, and we do appreciate it very much. And also, I was told that Hal is having an issue attaching a message to the super chat. So I think I went back and found the one that Hal wanted me to say, but if it is not the one you want, please put the other one in the live chat and tag me, and I'll revisit the super chat. But the message, I think, is I appreciate your Cossack resolve. Ask Starsky how the Ukrainian drone club is doing these days.
And thank you so much for the support. I'm glad to finally see, Hal, that you're not just sending these in without comments, because it sends me into like freak out mode. I'm like, oh my god! But yes, I will check with them and see the condition of the drone units, because it looks like they're having a decent bit of fun, if you know what I mean. But I'm not really sure the exact condition, so I will make sure to run a question by him and see how it's going. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Hal. You have sent in multiple amounts of support tonight, and I gotta thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running, because viewers like you help us to keep alive in the background, help to keep the lights on, and help us to keep going to college, so that way we can eventually get to law school, which should be soon. It should be like in a semester's time. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for being incredibly kind to us. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $15 super chat from Robert Nicholson, who says, "Ding dong, the witch is dead?" ?
Ding dong, the witch is dead. If you're talking about the Russian army as the witch, yeah, they're dead. Oh yeah. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Oats Air, who says, "Take a question from the chat. Texas is lovely, and Oklahoma stinks. Slava LSA and Slava Ukraine."
And thank you for the support, Osair. Osair is representing the Texans on their behalf. And so with that, we will make sure to answer a live chat. And thank you once again for the support.
What was that?
That was my phone, which I used as a third screen over here, and it just fell out of my lap and onto the floor. But it is okay. The case is fine. Also, it's the Enforcer phone case. You can get one on the enforcerstore.com.
Nice.
And so
that was slick.
Yeah, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the live chat question goes to Christian Casper, who says, "Will parts of Crimea now be within HIMARS range?"
Parts of Crimea could be in HIMARS range. Let's measure that out. Oh, snap. They could be. I mean, Armyansk would probably be the only thing that could be reached. But yes, it will be in range. That's wild. And so with that, I hope we answered that question fairly well, the live chat. And based on what we're seeing, the HIMARS range is about 50 miles. I think it can reach further. And that is crazy to think that they will be in HIMARS range for the first time in the war. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again, Altair, for the support.
And up next, we have a $22 super chat from Mech Tactical, who says, "I'm late. Sorry. And we forgive you." He says,
I do
"The
not.
rabbit holes..."
To the salt mines.
Oh, wow.
I'm just kidding.
And Mech says, "The rabbit holes are why I subbed to the channel. I giggled for a solid hour after last night's meth glory hole." Yeah, keep killing it, my friend. 100, 100, laughing face. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. 100, 100, laughing face, smiling face. And also, it's totally fine that you're late, Mech. I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that you were able to watch it. If you want to watch the beginning of it, you can watch it on replay. That's the great thing about YouTube, is that once the streams are done, they turn into a video, and then people can watch them whenever. But I thank you so much for enjoying the rabbit holes, because I love rabbit holes. Of course, I do them because I like them, and I like covering interesting little side bits and topics. One thing, though, that always irks me a little about, I mean, of course, you know, everyone's always like, why are you addressing haters? I get comments, like, one second. I get, like, some of y'all don't believe that I get comments And I'll read one to y'all that
I can't believe you get a comment.
Yeah, I get comments. Can you believe that? Well, we're looking at 27,000 of them in the live chat right now, and I get comments. Unbelievable. But let's see. Let's see here. I'm gonna scroll through. Let's see here. I think
that might have been a typo, by the way, folks, that you are mentioning in the live chat.
1 second, everyone. 1 second. I gotta find it. Trying to find it. I'm doing all this eyeing so that way y'all know I'm trying to find it. I'm not just being silent over here. Dang, this one was a good ways back. Dang, it's like it's disappeared. Did you go through and nuke that one?
Probably so. If it was a bot.
Yeah, it's gone now. So I guess you nuked it. I was trying to find it because usually I just leave them alone because they're in their comments section. I'm like, but still,
I catch them all.
But still, I went
like
through.
Pokemon.
I went through earlier today, and someone wanted to sit there. You're joking and laughing while people are dying, and it's just same crap. It's like, and then other people sit there. We're here for the news. Could you just cover the news? It's like, I don't mean to be rude about this, but it's like, it's my channel. It's like the show will be run how I want to run the show in the news. And so if I want to go down a rabbit hole, I go down a rabbit hole. If we want to laugh and have a joke, we'll laugh and have a joke. It's like, I don't understand why people complain about that because it's like, it's the show. You either like the show or you don't like the show, and it is what it is. And I don't know why people have got to go through and throw in hate comments like that, but I'm glad that you do like the rabbit holes because that's one of the things that we get like the largest amounts of complaints about sometimes in the comments section is the rabbit holes. And I honestly like them. I find them fun, and I hope that everyone else finds them fun too. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have yet another super chat from Mech Tactical, who puts in a $22 donation once again. Mech says, I have my own channel. I know. The raw videos are available anywhere. The outtakes and personal opinion are only available here.
And thank you so much for the support, Mech. And I'm glad that you do have a channel so you understand as well. Because I think, and I know, and a lot of viewers don't see this because I actually see this one guy. I've watched him a little bit. I'll pull him up real quick and show y'all. This guy called Paul Harrell. If y'all have ever seen him, he's a gun channel here on YouTube, and he covers guns. And he's always talking about people in his comments section saying stuff to him, knowing everything. And and I will say this though, unlike Paul Harrell, who is the be-all know-all on guns, this guy is never wrong on anything he says. He knows the stuff. He's unlike him. I am wrong on things, and I'm willing to accept that and be corrected, like by tankers and such people like that. But still, there are people who will come in here and they will just try and get in a fight with me for no reason, or they'll just hate on the channel for no reason. So I'm glad that you do understand that. A lot of people don't see that unless if they are running a channel, and then you're like, why are these people so negative in the comments? And it's like, for some reason, they're incredibly vocal. They're not as vocal as the people who like the channel, because you can have like a 98% like rate, 3,000 likes, and almost a quarter or a third of the comments are negative. It's just weird. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, Mac Tactical. And I thank you so much for enjoying this channel again. And the outtakes and the personal opinion are only available here. Kind of. I mean, we kind of have outtakes that just happen live, so we just gotta be like, we'll just like fumble over screwed up words and stuff. But thank you so much once again. And also, like, Hanoi Tripper, get to the fact, quit whining. And it's like, listen, man, like, I just gotta say this again. I said it a second ago. It is my show. I will whine here for a second. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, thanks a lot. We do watch Hickok 45. Hickok 45 here. Hey, and today we're going to smoke some pot.
Wait. Hey guys, Hickok 45 here. And today we're going to be shooting the lever action so-and-so. And we got the ammo from Federal Ammo. Huge credit to them. And let's see about hitting that gong out there. Let's see about hitting that cowboy down there.
Yes.
And let's see about smoking some pot. It's like, yeah, I love, like, Hickok, a lot of the gun channels out there are really cool. I like them. There are some, you know, and of course, it's just me being a critic a little bit. There are some I don't like, but I mean, everyone does their own thing. There's an audience out there for everything. But I really like Hickok 45 and Paul Harrell, and I like Paul Harrell because he's like a no-nonsense guy. He just gets down to the information, and he also doesn't get too nerdy about things like barrel twist and stuff like that. I just like him. You know, I think he's a good channel. And so with that,
You know, fun fact, Enforcer, back before your channel, when I had a YouTube channel of my own and I covered motorcycle videos, I was actually mistaken for Hickok 45, and they thought it was actually him that rode motorcycles because I didn't show my face. And actually had a pretty good amount of views back in the day.
And actually, Matthew did have a channel. He actually used to cover motorcycle stuff. And that was actually a pretty interesting time. Matthew just, I don't, why did you quit YouTube, Matthew? Because he quit it like, what, like 3 years ago?
Oh, because I got rid of my motorcycle. That was the whole channel.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, he got rid of his motorcycle. I've never ridden a motorcycle before. Actually, I got a motorcycle, and then I panicked, to be honest. Like, I got on it, and I had a very bad bike wreck as a kid. I actually have a scar still that's on my right side of my nose, and I got this overlap, like a flap of skin on both sides of my mouth because my mouth was tore open like the Joker almost. You can't see it on the outside, but you can feel it on the inside of my mouth. And so I kind of have this fear of two-wheeled vehicles now, like bikes and motorcycles. So I got on that thing, and I was like, nope, I'm done. And I never rode one again. I'm kind of interested in riding them now, but I'm honestly way too busy to do that, so it's just going to stay a dream. But with that, I hope you all enjoyed that little sideshow rabbit hole, and we're on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for the support, Mech Tactical, and helping this channel to keep on running.
All right. And also up next, we have a $10 super chat from Jay Bagwell, who says, cheers to the brilliant Russian tacticians that publicly announced the retreat prior to actually leaving. Perhaps it was Dr. Evil.
And thank you for the support, Jay. Also, Jay is the only fan, I believe, who has met me in person, along with his family.
He sent us cookies.
Yeah, he sent us cookies. They had little Ukrainian flags on them. They were so cool.
And they're very good, too.
He also gave me books. And they're really nice books. I've tried to read a couple of them, and I like them a lot. Also, one other thing. We got this big wooden 155 millimeter artillery shell dummy. I use that thing as a doorstop now, and I gotta say, it's cool looking, and it looks cool as a doorstop. But anyways, I thank you so much for the support, Jay. And it was very cool meeting you and your family and hanging out with y'all twice, actually. I hung out with them twice. Same place, but twice. And it was really fun both times. Got to watch a fireworks show with them, and they were fun. They were great people. And moving on from that and addressing the comment, I really like how they announced that as well. It was in the making. We were reporting on the withdrawal on this channel for almost a week and a half before they officially announced it. So it was happening beforehand, but it was still a stupid move for them to clearly state what they were doing. And if they end up not pulling off a trap, that was probably the dumbest move ever. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Jay. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have the return of a legend. Trademarks and patents for growing businesses returns to the channel and puts in a $100 donation. He says, great news, great job, Enforcer and Enforcer Matt. Even if Ukraine captures 10,000 soldiers and equipment, will unfortunately not end a way against a nation of 140 million. It is but a small, good next step. And take a question from the chat and get rest.
And thank you so much for the support, Trademarks and Patents. I remember that name popping up on day 4, and I think if we go back to that stream, which we won't on stream right now, but if you went back to that one, I think I remember looking at your name, and I was like, that is a cool name. And I think I said something like that the first time you were ever here. And so I got to thank you so much once again for the support. Welcome back. And also to address that comment, it probably wouldn't end the war, but such an embarrassing defeat, leaving the Russians practically with no one to defend the other side of the Dnieper River. If the Ukrainians pulled that off and captured that many soldiers, they could probably cross the Dnieper River successfully, and then they would threaten Crimea, and that would be a huge issue for the Russians. It would never fix itself. But I can agree with you. It may not end the war because it is a country of 140 million, but there always has to play, this always has to play into the supply side of things. They may have 140 million citizens, but do you have enough guns, tanks, ammunition, fuel? But still, a very good point, Trademarks and Patents. And I try and get rest. It is very tough, though. Tomorrow, I have to write several essays So I'm going to be very busy tomorrow, but I try and rest the best I can, I suppose. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And welcome back, trademarks and patents. It's been a long time since you've been here. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
Next, we have a $10 super chat from Mal Lit, who says, I think that's actually Mallet. I just realized what I said. Do you think once Ukraine wins this war, they will help Moldova and Georgia? I think they might.
I think that Ukraine will probably help Moldova. Since they're next door neighbors, they border each other, and so it would be very easy for them to do that. I don't know about Georgia because they would have to transport their soldiers to Georgia or their arms and support to Georgia, and so I don't know about that one. But Moldova would be plausible. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Anthony, who says, once Kherson is liberated, will the Russians start bombarding it since the Russian army is right across that river?
I would say, can you reread that one again real quick?
Once Kherson is liberated, will the Russians start bombarding it since the Russian army is right across that river?
They probably will, but the Ukraine, if that is the case, the Ukraine will most likely evacuate the civilians from the city, and then it'll become another war zone. But it's most likely plausible if the Ukrainians don't counter battery the Russian artillery and force them back. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and thank you once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Right, and moving on to our next one, we have a super chat from Blue Flam 777, who puts in a $10 donation, who says, goes to the chat. And Blue Flam, thank you very much for that support, and thank you for also being a channel legend yourself. And to go ahead and pick out that live chat question, it goes to Susan Lowell, who says, Russian soldiers have a good head start. Why not keep them running?
Great point. I think they should. However, it will be very hard to keep them running once they reach the river, because that's going to have to be like jumping over a valley nearly for the Ukrainians, and that's very tough to do. And the Russians could just push them into the valley once they almost get to the other side. So with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well. Very good one, very metaphorical one as well in a way. And with that, we are on to the next one. I hope we were able to answer that live chat fairly well. And also now in our time zone, as you can see down here at the bottom, it just turned November 11th. So now it's Armistice Veterans Day for us as well. And a happy Veterans Day to all of our veterans. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
Right, and up next we have a... Did we get to that live chat question?
Live?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
So up next we have a $10 super chat from DL Hemingway, who says, Kherson to become to Russia what Fly was to Germany. Is that correct?
Fly. Is that spelled P-H?
Spelled with a F.
Can you spell that for me real quick?
F-A-L-A-I-S-E.
Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. Oh, crap. Yeah, okay. I don't know why that... Why in the world did I not remember that? Huh. I'm going to be honest with you. I've had an aneurysm or something, because at one point I did know what this was. But for some reason, when I just heard that in the super chat, I've completely forgot what it was. This was when the U.S. practically screwed over the Germans, and the Germans would lose France just because of this battle. So I would say, yeah, I would say it's similar. However, the Germans got surrounded here because they're idiots. The Russians are also getting surrounded because they're idiots. The other reason, also, I'm not saying that modern Germans are idiots. I'm saying that the Germans of the Second World War were idiots at this point, especially with this kind of maneuver that they did here. But the Russians are idiots more so because they will be doing this, and there will be a massive water feature behind them that will be incredibly difficult to cross if that happens to them. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. Very great assessment right there. And for some reason, while I know about the fillets pocket, or the fillet pocket, fry them up like filet. I unfortunately don't really remember a lot about it. I know the general scheme, though, and I know that there was apparently a decent amount of atrocities that the Germans would commit against prisoners of war in this area. They would just capture them and shoot them on sight all the time. But still, with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And I'm kind of interested why I'm so ignorant about that. I remember reading about that, and now I just don't know anything about it. But with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat once more from News at 11, who says, "This is the bridge at Remagen, don't you think?"
Remagen, I believe it is. I might be
Or
wrong.
Remagen?
Yeah, I think it's Remagen. But let's pull it up real quick. Remagen. Spelled that wrong.
It's spelled Remagon.
Pronunciation.
Remagen.
Remagen.
Oh, it's Germany.
Remagen. I thought it was in the Netherlands. Wait, hang on.
It's Remagon with an O.
I'm dumb. I'm sorry about that.
Are you sure you're spelling it right?
I believe
Remagon.
Remagen.
O-N.
Remagon. Apparently, there's only Remagen with an E in Germany. Let's see here. Let me look at this. Let me look at this. Oh crap! Okay, now I remember why I'm getting confused. I'm getting confused with Nijmegen. That's why I put the J in it.
Oh, it's right near Cologne.
Yeah, it's right near Cologne, Bonen, and Duisburg.
That's Cologne, by the way.
and Dusseldorf and Dortmund and Essen and Bielefeld and Münster. Yeah, I mean Monster. Yeah, it's around all of them. But moving on down to Remagen. And can you reread that super chat again? Because we had so much fun butchering the German town names. I've completely forgot the super chat now.
All right, so there we go. Spreadsheet locked up again. News at 11 said this is the bridge at Remagen, don't you think?
Yes, it is. I would agree with that completely. It is going to be the complete failure of the Russians if that thing gets captured, and so I would agree with you entirely. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support. Also, just in case many people are wondering why I was singing Nijmegen, usually everyone always talks about Operation Market Garden because that entire operation was nothing but capturing bridge after bridge, usually with the support of the airborne capturing the bridge and holding it until the 30th Army, I believe it was, or the 30th Corps, could make its way up the highway and then relieve these cities. Nijmegen was the last one they would capture, and then they would move up towards Arnhem, which doesn't really look like it's that far in between Nijmegen and Arnhem now, Arnhem, but it was actually quite a distance back then because they would fail right at Arnhem. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well, and... Oh, yeah, okay. And we're not going to go over that rabbit hole, but anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Indy Andy 4C, who says, do you think orcs collapsing the lines to evacuate those in the countryside, then turn K City into an urban meat grinder to inflict huge losses against Ukraine?
I think that they're most likely, considering that the Ukrainians have already made it into Chernobivka without meeting hardly any resistance, I think that their lines are just collapsing entirely and chaos is now ensuing in Kherson. And so I don't think... And I'm probably quite wrong on this one. I don't think it'll turn into a meat grinder. I think that the Ukrainians are going to reach the bridge by tomorrow or the next day. And we'll see that the Russians are going to deal with the largest blunder they've ever had so far. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. It's not really that great of an answer, but to be honest with you, moving past all of the details, if the Ukrainians capture the bridge, it won't matter if the Russians can phase the defense here on this side of Kherson. The Ukrainians won't need it. They'll be able to starve out all the remaining Russians on the side of the Dnipro without having to fire a single extra shot. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, Indy Andy. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Cliff H, who says, is ability to swim commonplace in Russia?
I don't know. I have a feeling it's not. But then
why do you ask?
Why do you ask? It's not like they have to go swimming across a river or anything with a strong current. But with that,
unless the Moskva sinks.
Oh yeah, that's
and becomes a sub.
You know, I wonder if the Moskva is going to ferry people across the river. I mean, it isn't a special underwater operation. Maybe it could do that.
They'll have to go down deep and find out.
I guess they'll have to go down a rabbit hole. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support. And I'm not really certain on that, but I feel like the answer would be no.
All right. And with that being said, we're moving on to our next one, which is from Carson Larimore, who puts in a $10 donation and says, I think what the pamphlets actually say is, quote unquote, are you tired of being Putler's female dog? Call 1-800-I-want-to-live.
Very interesting. I believe they may actually say that, but I honestly think that it's going to be something about compensation for drinking water at Camp Lejeune. I feel like that was probably what's on those leaflets. But of course, thank you so much for the support. And just kidding. To be honest, I would say that's probably what's on them. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Rotor Max, who says, great reporting, guys, and thanks.
And thank you so much for enjoying this channel and also the reporting that we cover. I try and do my best. We do have an error here and there, but I thank you so much for enjoying it nonetheless. It means a lot to me that people do enjoy this channel and that we're able to keep on covering it each and every day. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Mr. Lunchtime, who says, happy birthday, USMC, and Semper Fi.
And thank you so much for the support, Monsieur Lunchtime. And it is the birthday of the USMC. So happy birthday to the Marine Corps again. And thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also for the Marine Corps veterans out there, is it inappropriate for a non-Marine to say Semper Fi? Because I remember back when I was in JROTC in high school, there was this one girl that was going into the Marine Corps. My mic just cut out, by the way.
Yeah,
I saw that.
Yeah.
There was this one girl that was going into the Marine Corps that would insist that nobody could say Semper Fi unless you were going into the Marines. And I want to know if that's actually the case or not.
Oh, and oh man, I remember that girl. There's some stories about her. So let's share a couple of them, Matthew, because they're hilarious. One, she had a mental breakdown because we were, the JROTC was a part of the parade, and we were carrying the flags of the branches of service, and she was told to carry the Army one instead of the Marine one. She had a mental breakdown, and so they took the person off of the Army flag and had her carry the Marine one. She also got into a cussing battle with me because I was playing the bagpipes, and I was going to play the Marine Corps hymn on the bagpipes. And she got in a cussing battle with me because only real corpsmen can play the bagpipes. The last I checked, she's not really having a fun time in the Marine Corps. So, that's kind of a little ironic in the end. But that was a nightmare. That was just, ew. And also, JROTC was fun in some ways, not in others, mostly because of the kids that were in it. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
Right. Up next, we have a $5 super chat from Philip Fixes, who says, Corporal Larry E. Smedley, National Vietnam War Museum, Florida survived again. Buildings are falling into the Atlantic, but the rest of us are all right.
And thank you so much for the support, and also for giving us a little report on that. Now, what was the museum in particular, Matthew? Because I want to Google it and take a look at it.
The Corporal Larry E. Smedley, National Vietnam War Museum.
So here we have it. It is all the way in Orlando. And it's got like its own little pavilion. And let's take a look at this. Alright, so we got a trainer plane. We got a Skyhawk back there and a Huey. They also show us the layout of a firebase. That's actually a pretty accurate firebase according to pictures, which is pretty cool. We can also see one of those patrol. I forgot a dark. No, it's not. I forgot the name of this exact boat, but I remember that Jeremy Clarkson used this thing on Top Gear, and it gets stopped on a dime, which is really interesting. Also an M35, nice. I like M35s. When you see kind of like a recreation of a part of a fire post. Pretty cool museum all around. They also got a statue of a doggo. But with that, I thank you so much for the support and giving us a little update there. And it's good to know that these things survived. It's always nice to know that the museums make it out okay. And that looks like a pretty interesting one. Maybe we'll check it out one day. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the update.
Up next, we have a $20 super chat from Gucci the Pug, who says, if it's already been addressed, then my bad. Have you ever heard about Russia inspecting their own bunkers? And will they be hiring Afghanistan commandos that the U.S. is delaying on the immigration process and are desperate for monies?
I thank you for the support. I'm going to be honest. I feel like I'm going to have to declare ignorance on that one because I'm not really sure if I'm qualified to give an answer there. I don't know about the Afghans who are trying to get into the United States and whether they would fight for the Russians or not, but that is a pretty interesting question, I would say. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Gucci Bug. You have been a channel legend, but sadly, I think that one is beyond me. I don't think I'd be able to answer it well, and I would just be taking a shot in the dark to try. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from John L., who says, "Greetings to Enforcer Matt, the ambassador to Ukraine under the Enforcer administration. Yeehaw! What are the chances this will come true?"
It's possible. It's highly possible. I'll say that at least. One thing, I will say a couple of policies that I have, and I think that people can get behind these. One, and I know that these are already kind of moving through Congress a little bit, but if they haven't been passed, then I'll make sure that they're spearheaded. One, daylight savings time will be abolished. Daylight savings time will no longer exist. It's an obsolete time method for a bygone age. The United States doesn't need daylight savings time anymore. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to make election days federal holidays. So that way it's a little bit easier to get off work and allow folks to go vote if they want to. The third thing we're going to do, and these are small trivial ones, I'm sure everyone can get behind them, that's why I'm saying them. The third thing we're going to do is we're going to make the expiration dates standardized. It's not going to be best by, it's not going to be sell by, and it's not going to be expires. It's all going to be expires. It's going to be the day that the food is no longer edible. That will be the day that the expiration date's for. So that way it's straightforward and it's not confusing. We're also going to standardize. We're also going to standardize the names of ingredients. So that way ingredients can't go under different names, like, 20 different names for the same thing. The ingredients will all be the same name. So instead of calling it, like thiamine triamysate, it'll just be the one ingredient that it actually is. And so those are a couple of the things. I call those quality of life changes. I don't understand why the hell no administration focuses on this stuff, because you can talk about the things that they talk about all day long, like immigration and things like that. But you're like, the average American, okay, is not immigrating across the border every day. Okay, what the average American is doing is that they're looking at the time every day, they're buying food at the grocery store every day, and other things like that. I don't know why anyone doesn't change that stuff and focus on the things that we actually have to live with day by day as a citizen. But with that, I'm going to digress. Those are part of my campaign policies in 2040, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from CA Lags, who says, "You can't believe what the cows suffered under the Russians."
And they did.
and so honestly, I know that was probably meant as a joke, but that's kind of sad to me, like how the animals suffer during the war, because the animals don't even know what's going on. And I feel really like extra bad for the animals that are just innocent in the whole thing.
Well, I believe he's actually talking about a specific instance in Russian history where Stalin was trying to collectivize the peasant farms, and the peasants got so pissed off they ended up killing all the cattle and leading the Soviet Union into a famine. So
still feel bad for those animals.
I still feel bad for them. I mean, that was rough, but I understand where the peasants were coming from. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Roadrunner, who doesn't leave a comment, but I'm sure Roadrunner is still running away from Wiley. But I hope Acme is going well, and thank you very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much for the support as well and helping this channel to keep on running. Without viewers like you, it wouldn't be possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right, and also somebody, the name just slipped my mind. They asked me to poll about the viewers' ages. So instead of listing off a bunch of different complex options, I just said it very simply. Would you consider yourself a youngin? It looks like 17% said yes and 83% said nah. So the overwhelming majority does not consider themselves a youngin. So that's very subjective. But anyways, Enforcer, any comments?
Well, we actually have an exact demographic breakdown on our channel. It shows us the age and sex demographics of all of our viewers, and it ends up that 90% of our viewers are male, 10% are female, and only about 7% of y'all are below the age of 24. So it's actually interesting to see the statistics actually show that most people who vote on that poll are about, like, being quite honest, they're in our normal demographic. They're not, I consider youngins around my age, you know, around 18 to 24. And so if y'all were going off that criteria, it's interesting to see. Also, just in case y'all wondering about the demographics that we get on our viewers, YouTube doesn't give us, like, you know, like y'all's search history or anything like that. They just tell us how old y'all are, what country y'all are from, and also, you know, if y'all are a male or female, and that's it. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
You know, next we have a $5 super chat from Pete Hone, who says, I still have that model washer. It's a tank the Russians could learn from.
Yes, it is. That thing was beefy built. I gotta say, it's probably one of the better washing machines. And so with that, thank you for the support. I hope that addresses the comment fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have another $5 super chat from James Dunn, who says, happy U.S. Marine Corps birthday to all the Marines fighting in the Foreign Legion.
And a happy birthday to all of them as well. There's actually been a decent amount of Foreign Legion members who've gone to Ukraine, fought for Ukraine, and some of them have died for Ukraine, and some of them could have been Marines. And I gotta say to them, happy birthday to the Corps for them as well, and I thank them so much for fighting on behalf of the United States. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from C.A. Lags, who says, if the Russians are planning a trap, it'll probably involve artillery. How is the Ukraine counter battery? Ukraine should identify and destroy Yamo depots and cannon.
And I thank you for the support, and I would say that the Ukrainian counter battery is incredibly strong, and that's what will largely negate Russian artillery from the outset, will be Ukrainian counter battery fire. And so I feel like they will do incredibly well, and of course they will continue, like they have been throughout most of the war, targeting ammunition and communication and command centers like they have been. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Bob A., who says, Enforcer, could Putin try to blame the dam blow and loss of Russian troops on Ukraine to rally support in Russia?
He probably could try, but I don't see it going well, because it would quite clearly be obvious the Ukrainians wouldn't have an interest in doing that. But, I mean, it's possible, because we've seen them blame a lot of stuff on the Ukrainians, and for some reason the Russian public has believed it, although it was clearly the Russians that did it. And so with that, I thank you for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, big shout out to JR for putting in a $5 donation, along with, actually, let's see here, Dylan Wells put one in as well. Thank you very much to both of you while I'm struggling to speak here. JR and Dylan, we appreciate that support, and thank you very much for watching the channel. And moving right along, we have a $5 super chat from Lurch Eibold, who says, for those that super chat and don't comment, why not do an auto live chat question? Just a thought, and keep up the good work, LSA.
And that is a good idea. However, it is sometimes beneficial when people do not send in comments, because it allows us to get to the live chats quicker. So I guess in a way they are kind of like auto making sure that we were answering live chat questions, because they cut down on the super chat segment a little bit by not sending in comments. It's just that it's like when someone sends like a $5 or a $10 super chat, and they don't send in a comment. It's like, you know, it's like, man, that's unfortunate, but it helps us to get to the live chats. But when someone sends in like $100 or a $200 super chat and they don't send in the comment, then I feel bad, because I'm like, man, you know, you've helped out our channel a lot. You're supporting us and keeping us alive, and, you know, $200 is nothing to just, you know, look at and move on from. And they didn't even leave in a comment. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, you at least like to support us that much, you at least have to give us the chance to answer something or respond to something. But still, that is a pretty good point. We might think about that in the future. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Badger Resistance, who says, I like the new Ukrainian anthem. However, I'm kind of disappointed I don't see a turret toss flying over the treetops.
Ah, man. Well, thank you for the support. I love the new Ukrainian anthem. I think it's a good one. And I've seen this so much. And I'm going to have to explain this again because I don't think a lot of people know. We cannot play the old anthem we've been playing forever because it's been copyrighted now, and we will be copyright striked if we play it anymore. So we cannot play that anthem. So if you liked it, I'm sorry, but there's nothing we can do about it. We can't go back to that one. We have to try and find a new one, and this one's the best one I've found. I want to get Vanilla RPG Soundtracks, who's the fellow who made that one. He was incredibly generous making it for this channel. I would like to get his composition and give it to the Symphony Orchestra here in Birmingham and see if they can play it and maybe see about putting that on stream because I like his rendition, but I want it to be orchestral because I'm a huge orchestral nerd and I love it. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I really love it too, and I think it's a good one. But sadly, there is no turret toss. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support.
Right, and just a heads up, we do have 10 more left. So up next, we have a $5 super chat from Badger Resistance, who says, Texas rocks. Check out the west of Texas from drive tanks in Uvalde to Big Bend National Park to Fort Davis.
You know, Matthew, we actually have a drive tanks in Alabama.
I know. It's over there in Anniston, I think.
Yeah, Combat Park. Let's see where it is. It is near Oxford and Anniston. Oh, crap. It's right near Talladega.
Talladega? You mean Talladega?
Yeah, I'm just kidding around. I know I'm about to piss on. Oh, it's Talladega, you idiot. But yeah, Combat Park, right near Talladega. Wow, they got like a little paintball field and everything. Crazy. Let's take a look at this. Okay, so they have an Abbott SPG, British, neat. What else they got? They got some skeletons. They also got a paintball tank, kind of bizarre. Some Humvees, pretty cool. An M35, real kitted out M35, red, white, and blue, pretty neat. America. When you see some kind of a tracked ATV and a Sultan, I believe, if I'm correct, that's a Sultan. Pretty cool. What else do they have? It looks like they only have that Abbott. Is that it? Is that the only tank they have is one Abbott and that's Sultan? Doesn't mean like they are tanks, but you know, for some reason I thought they had a Leopard 1 or something like that. I think that might actually be drive tanks in California that I'm thinking about. So let's go to drive tanks in California. Drive tanks.
So unfortunately, we're starting to run a little low on time.
Oh, well, I mean, you know, yeah, we need
And we got a lot left.
How many do we have left?
9.
Oh, that's not that many. I mean,
But it's already 12:30.
Yeah, but they got a Leopard 1. Look at that. That's cool. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. We are running out of time, but it is pretty cool to see that DriveTanks.com is out near Uvalde, which made headlines for a very unfortunate incident. But with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Walter A. Lakota Jr. Once again, he says, Capella, the ship that rescued the Titanic survivors in 1912.
And thank you so much for the support, Walter. And we actually addressed that one a little bit earlier. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again.
And up next, a big shout out to Marc-Andre Brunette, as well as Junebug72 for each putting in a $4 super chat, but without a comment. Thank you very much to both of you for that support. And also, shout out to Dubsy Dabster for putting in that $2 donation as well. Moving right along, we have a $3 super chat from Glenn C., who says, where is the Black Sea Fleet? Have they made any moves? I guess you could say to fire on Kherson.
From what I know, they're still based in Sevastopol and they have not left port. And that's about all I know right now. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. I thank you so much for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, CA Lags puts in a $2 donation and says for the Renault Tank Fund. And if you're looking at that Renault tank we were looking at earlier, it looks like we're going to need a hell of a lot of those $2 donations to reach 130,000. And that seems pretty steep for that tank, by the way.
Wait a minute. Drive tanks. Let's go to drive tanks. How much does it cost to get a tank here? Tanks. Yeah, we want the tanks, please. Let's see. So you can drive a Russian T-34 for $2,250?
No, CA Lags meant to buy the Renault we were looking at.
Oh, well, I think it was $10,000. Like the one I was.
That other one was 130.
Yeah, I wouldn't get that one though. I mean, like that's just overpaying. Oh crap! Wow, they got a lot of tanks here. Oh, and they also got the Abbott, and they got a BMP-1. You too can be a Ukrainian infantryman for the cost of $750. But anyways, with
this sounds like an excellent video to make, to go to the tank thing and go drive some of them and make a video.
Oh god, but it'd be so expensive, you know, like
Mr. Beast spends all his money on videos.
Okay,
we have to do the same.
But I'm just saying, his videos are kind of crazy. I think every single YouTube channel that ever covers anything with war at some point has been to drivetanks.com. Like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe we would. It's just that.
But nobody's ever seen Ferris Bueller get in the driver's seat of a tank.
You know, that's a good point. We'll have to consider that. And so with that, we are on to the next. Thank you once again for the support and also the Rent a Tank Fund.
All right, and up next we have a $2 super chat from Mr. Diggs, who says, "Is rushing the dam needed to save from sabotage?"
I don't believe it's needed, but it would be a great precaution to take to try and take the dam before anything can happen to it. And so I would say yes. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Uber Khan, who says, "I really like you guys tonight. Thanks."
And thank you so much for the support and also enjoying our channel. I thank you so much for supporting it so that way we can keep this thing going, so that way we can keep these streams the way they are. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right, and for our final super chat of the night, we have a $1 donation from Dave Oz, who says, "I want to hear Mike Tyson thoughts about Kharkiv."
Let me tell you something. My thoughts on, I'm losing my Mike Tyson. What the hell? Wait, hold on. I'm sorry, everyone. Y'all gonna have to bear with us here. I know I don't cuss a lot on stream, but this is how I get to my Mike Tyson. I thought you was a nice guy, man, but he's really just a rat piece of shit, man. He's just a rat piece of shit. All right, so now that we got the Mike Tyson back, it still does not sound like Mike Tyson. I really need to start working on my voices again. I haven't done them in ages, but so many people bullied me to not do them. But anyways, my pigeons kiss. I drink Fiji water. Okay, so my thoughts on Kharkiv is that it's doing pretty good. It's not on the front line anymore. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. My defense is impregnable. My offense is impenetrable. I have white lion tigers in some kind of cage. They eat me alive. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next thing. Thank you so much once again for the support. And that was not a good Mike Tyson. And so with that, now that we've moved into the live chats and it's incredibly late, we're going to answer 3 of them due to time constraints. I'm sorry that it's a low number, but it has gotten incredibly late. And so with that, we are on to the first one.
Right. And up first, we have our Morse code decoders of the stream. Excuse me. Mark Hodges, CFA, WF2U, and BME. They said the Morse code message reads, "Liberation came early. Slava Ukraine."
And thank you, ding-a-ding-a-ding, you all got it correct, for deciphering that Morse code message, because that is what the message says. It is saying exactly that. And so with that, thank you so much for deciphering that Morse code message again. On day 261, the 261st day of the war, and y'all are still deciphering these messages. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you all once again.
And up next, we have a question from Tony Snedcore, who says, "Can we talk about where the major supply lines for Russia are now?"
We actually have them highlighted in green in the southern area, and also red as well, depending on whether they come from Crimea or the land bridge. So that is most likely where their supply lines are, exactly based off of the railheads. And so with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And we are on to the final question of the night. So who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Danny Van Strellen, who says, "At the Enforcers, do you think, and I do hope, that Ukraine will have the momentum to open a new front, knocking the Russians out of the socks?"
And I think they can. I would say that if they are able to pull off what I'm seeing they're doing in Kherson, they will be able to turn this entire war around, open up a new front, and probably have massive amounts of progress and success there. So with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well. And of course, not really a long answer, but if they are able to succeed in Kherson, it's definite they will be succeeding in another part of the front line very soon after. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. It's been quite a long one, 3 hours and 33 minutes and 33 seconds long is the time I'm looking over there right now. What a coincidence. But with that, I thank you all so much once again for watching. If y'all did enjoy tonight's stream, please make sure to subscribe and also share this with your friends, as it lets them know that we cover this news and helps this channel to keep on growing. We just passed tonight, and let me go back and check this. we have passed 107,000 subscribers tonight. In fact, we got all the way up to 107,050 subscribers. And so, if you would like, you can help us to reach 108,000 a lot quicker with your help. All you have to do is click the like button, make sure to subscribe if you're not subscribed, and also share this with your friends. And it helps the Enforcer channel to grow, and it helps the Lee Spring Army to grow as well. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow on day 262 of the news of the war in Ukraine. Thank you all so much once again. I will see you all tomorrow. Good night, take care, and stay safe. Also, Slava Ukraini.
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.
Усміхнеться доля, згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу.